So that is partly true. Not that, not that they're trying to just hire warm bodies, but speaking to what I do with Cal State East Bay and putting people into the public school system as teachers here in California. So it is true that there definitely is a huge need for teachers. I think it has changed since I did since I left. I think there's probably less pharmaceutical sales reps out there for the reasons we talked about earlier, that the clinics are sort of shutting out the reps and there's some consolidation within the medical field. That being said, there are still positions out there because I have friends that are still doing this.
The potential corruptness of the American medical system and insurance system, just from
the profit motive,
just from your perspective, the things that you worked on through sales, what comes to mind, the things that you saw?
Yeah, I mean, when you are looking at it from the outside and you're not necessarily in the industry, and this is true of a lot of different industries and lines of work. I mean, you look at it from the outside and you see, like we were talking about earlier, all these different people and entities making all this money, right? And just to talk about the pharmaceutical industry, people look at like the pharmaceutical companies and they look at like the price of medications and the price of insurance and all that other stuff.
Yeah,
and
it's highway robbery.
It's highway robbery, right? It's super expensive. But what they don't see is
Hello, family and friends. Welcome to another Talks with Liem. This is available to the billions around the world on YouTube in 4K and audio streaming services like Pandora, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. If you like this content, please subscribe, like, comment, and share. And now onto the podcast. Jason, thank you for being on this podcast with us. So you come from a bioengineering master's degree, and then later on you got your MBA, but you started the bioengineering towards your PhD, but then decided that wasn't for you. And then later on, you started working for Allergan. Is that how you say that?
Mm-hmm.
Which is
that was somewhere in there.
Maybe mostly known for making Botox. I'm guessing that's what most people might know them for. And then you got into the sales side of that. And then around 7 years ago, you changed it completely. And now you're a chemistry teacher for a local community college. And you're helping find teachers for that. And then I think there's one tiny.
Oh, you were so close.
There's one
more or less.
One thing after that.
Have you been to prison?
No, but the police have been to my parents' house.
Whoa, that's a story.
That wasn't in the pre-questions that I sent Liam.
Were you involved? Were they after you or they're after your parents?
I was involved.
Oh lordy, you want to tell that now or later?
Whatever. You guys run the show. I just answer the questions.
Let's start with it for fun. Let's go for it.
Yes. Why did the police visit your parents' abode searching for Jason?
All right. So I'm sure in our our growing up, our youth phase, we've all had friends, some friends that are good influences and some friends that are, let's call it, learning experiences. So we had a group of guys that used to play on our street. And so we would be out there playing ping pong, football, baseball, whatever in the street. And sometimes we were a little bit of a nuisance in the neighborhood. But long story short, there was a guy that was pretty close in age to me. I think he was maybe a grade younger or older than me. But anyway, he somehow got the keys to one of the other guys' houses on our street. And at that time, if I was to date myself, this is when we were dealing with Nintendo systems, the one with the flip top and the cartridge that you put in.
Yeah, back in the 80s.
Yeah, I can see that maybe you're not even being able to picture that. But anyway, so he gets the key to this guy's house.
I lived that life.
Yeah. So he gets the key to this guy's house and he's like, oh yeah, he said we can like go in and just take some stuff. I'm like, oh, okay, really?
Yeah, take whatever you want.
Yeah, so we go in there and the other guy takes like a bunch of games. I don't know, maybe like 8 or 10 games. And I took a couple. So I kind of fell into that peer pressure kind of thing. And next thing I know, like my parents aren't home yet and I'm home after school. I'm literally, I remember this very clearly because clearly this is a moment that is etched in my mind. I'm sitting at the kitchen table doing my homework, and there's a knock at the door, and it's a police officer.
Yeah.
And I think he was by himself or with his other officer, not with the neighbor kid. But he's like, yeah, did you take the neighbor's Nintendo games? Like, yeah. He's like, yeah, you shouldn't have done that, and et cetera, et cetera. So basically give them back. We're not going to do anything serious, but you know, you need to tell your parents that I was here and all that other stuff. Right.
Yeah.
So, so I didn't get brought to the police station or anything like that, but the police did come to my door. They did convict me, I guess, if you want to call it, of
on the spot with no jury.
Yeah, exactly. I fessed up right away.
Wait, so this
gave back the games.
This is a critical moment in your life. You could have gone down the path of like criminal mastermind or the good guy. I guess you went the bioengineering route instead of gangs.
Kind of. And then I veered off again. But anyway, that was one of those teachable moments that my parents are like, you know, you need to make sure you choose your friends wisely and choose the people that you hang with wisely. And I didn't hang with that guy anymore. Let's just put it that way.
Did you ever hear any stories about what happened to that guy, like after high school and stuff?
No, I don't know. I kind of steered clear of him, and I mean, we were in the same school, so I never really ran into him. But we were probably better off anyway. I went my way, like you said, bioengineering and other things, and I don't know what ended up happening to him.
All right. Hey, is Allergan does Botox? I would have thought allergy stuff. Is that?
So
am I way off?
No, Jason, go ahead and answer.
Not necessarily. So Allergan, back when I was there, and I haven't kept up with it too much, but back when I was there, they did eye care stuff, they did skincare stuff, and then they were just getting into Botox and then Juvederm and some of these other cosmetic types of things.
Yeah.
So there were allergy medications like allergy eye drops, and I think in the skincare line, there was probably some stuff for allergies or sensitive skin or something like that, but they didn't do necessarily like allergy pills. And I don't know if you noticed me like touching my nose a little bit and stuff right now, but I don't know if you all deal with allergies, but it's the middle of spring season and hay fever.
Oh, that's our code word that's our code word for cocaine. So I figured you were.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you guys are. I don't know if you want to disclose your location, but you guys are in a more exciting place than I am.
Las Vegas is a place where, if you ask around enough, you can find somebody that can find you some cocaine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I can't say I've done that. The police coming to my door set me straight really early. This was like 7th grade.
I haven't tried it either. I'm afraid I'll like it a lot.
Yeah.
Too much.
All right. So you did sales at Allergan for how long?
So actually, and I didn't give you this detail, so it's fine. You represented it pretty well. So at Allergan, I was actually working in the office. So I was in sales and marketing research, and I was doing like cubicle work and computer work. When I left Allergan, that's when I went into outside sales. And that company actually was initially with Novartis. And then I moved over to Novo Nordisk, which was its own adventure, because I was seeing the same customers and they're like, is that like the same company, or is that like, you know, it sounds very, very familiar, very similar.
You went from Novartis to Novo Nordisk.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds like you just made that up.
No, it's true.
Okay.
So I started in my outside sales position with Novartis, and then long story short, my sales director moved from Novartis to Novo Nordisk, and he basically brought me along.
Yeah.
And then that's where at Novo Nordisk, I moved through the ranks as like a field salesperson, and then a sales trainer, and then a district manager. And that was my pharma career.
So, well, I have to ask though, this is really important. Is there a product that works for these dark circles under my eyes? They're not really bags, they're just dark.
You know, actually,
I always look tired no matter what I do. Like I could get 10 hours sleep and I'll wake up looking like a zombie.
Yeah, I'm sure there is something, but I would actually tell you, if you need more podcast guests, you can interview my wife, because my wife is very good with like skincare and facial kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That is not my forte. But you know, these days, I think if you look hard enough, and internet and Google is amazing, you can probably find pretty much anything you need.
No, they got all these bogus products, man. How do I sort through the 100 bad ones to find the good one that cures it, not just covers it up?
kind of like when Liam was starting to do his intro of me, I didn't want to interrupt him, but one of the things that we talk about in sales is don't let the facts get in the way of a good story.
Okay. Yeah.
I never used to, encourage my salespeople to mislead people or not tell the truth.
Yeah.
We always have to represent ourselves properly, but sometimes the details get in the way and you just kind of just go with it.
All right. So you're saying believe any ad I see because I'll enjoy it.
If somebody tells you with confidence, a lot of people will usually believe it.
Okay. I believe that.
Yeah.
All right, Liem, please.
So you did, like regional sales for, was that Allergan? And then I went to Novartis.
That's a Swiss company.
Oh, so it's completely separate companies, completely. So you were doing sales with Allergan, and then you.
Yeah, I was working in the office with Allergan, and then I went to do sales with Novartis, which is a Swiss company. And then when my sales director moved over to Novo Nordisk, which is a Danish company, he basically recruited me over there, and that's where I continued to do sales in the beginning, and then I kind of moved through the ranks and eventually became a district sales manager.
If you could redo your life, would you have gotten to that sales job at Allergan?
Wow, that's a hard hitter, man.
I know. Wow, that's deep thoughts already.
You can start your life over again.
That's actually kind of one of the things that I try to live my life by is just kind of go with what comes at you. I don't necessarily look back at should I have done this or should I not have done this. I will try to reflect on things and make sure that I don't do anything that I would regret, like the story I told you earlier. But life throws things at you and you take them, and some of them work out and some of them don't. And I tell my students this all the time. Don't be afraid to try things, because if you try it and you find out you don't like it, or if it doesn't work for you, at least you know. But if you don't try it and you look back, like you were saying, in your life 10 years, 20 years later, it's like, what if I would have, what if I would have really liked that? Or what if I would have been the world's greatest, whatever it is. I had an interest in it, but I didn't take that chance, and now I'll never know.
Yeah.
No, but in chemistry, you can't just be trying everything. It might blow up and put acid on your face.
So that's actually another kind of funny story that I didn't feed Liam. So I've been teaching chemistry now part-time at the community college for about 6 or 7 years.
Nice.
And in the first couple of years, I was teaching chemistry, and the students would be like, "Oh, are you like that guy in Breaking Bad?" I'm like, "I don't know what that is."
Yeah.
And so for the first couple or 3 years, every once in a while I'd get the question like, "Are you like that guy in Breaking Bad?" And I'm like, "I don't know who that is." And finally, one winter break, I remember this pretty clearly as well. I got season 1 of Breaking Bad, and I started watching it with my wife. And so we watched the first season and we got hooked. And within 2 weeks of like winter break, we watched all, 6 or 7 seasons.
And you were inspired.
Yeah. Well, no.
No.
So
okay.
that's another thing that's been vetoed out of my life is when we were watching this together, the money's great, right? The cash is great, but I don't think she wants the baggage and the danger that comes along with it.
Yeah.
So she's like, "Yeah, you won't be making any chemicals like that anytime ever."
Yeah, not dissolving human bodies in bathtubs.
Yeah. Yeah, apparently you've seen it, right? Hydrofluoric acid.
I think that was the one episode I saw. Yeah,
I think that's the very first episode, isn't it?
Is that where
it was somewhere in there, but basically they were trying to dissolve the guy's body. They put it in a bathtub and it ate through the bathtub and dropped through the second floor to the first floor.
Yeah.
It's like a sitcom, but not funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, it got pretty dark at the end, but it was entertaining and, kind of talking about.
It started with dissolving bodies and then it got really dark.
Yeah, but like we were saying, it shows you what kind of possibilities there are in life, but sometimes you don't want to explore every possibility.
Yeah. Hey, in chemistry, you're using a lot of funny chemicals like hydrofluoric acid, right? You're getting your hands on stuff that normal people don't have laying around the house. Are those kind of chemicals typically expensive or not expensive to get the stuff for your classroom?
It's not super expensive. Most of the things that we use in our classroom and the chemistry that I teach is general chemistry. We don't do anything super super fancy like you're seeing in Breaking Bad. But the stuff that we order for the classroom is pretty general chemicals, not super expensive, and it's not necessarily pharmaceutical grade pure either. So like if you're manufacturing product that's going to be ingested or consumed by people, there's certain standards that you need to meet that we're not doing in our community college chemistry lab.
Yeah.
What's the difference of chemistry and bioengineering?
So they can be related. Bioengineering actually, especially when I was going through school, was a pretty broad topic. It's a very interdisciplinary kind of a thing. So obviously bioengineering kind of, you can tell it's the combination of biology and engineering, right? But when I was going to college, it was still pretty, it was evolving. And so people usually took specializations in one of the traditional engineerings, like mechanical engineering or chemical engineering, or, you know, one of the others, electrical engineering. So chemistry it can be one of the focuses within bioengineering, which was actually the focus that I took. And that's how I ended up teaching chemistry at the community college. But you can do like biochemical engineering, but where you, at that time, when I was in the chemical engineering classes, you're designing like reactors and stuff to, like we were talking about earlier. Let's say that you've discovered a product that is pharmaceutical grade, something, a therapy or something like that, right? So now if you're going to mass market it and you're going to produce it in quantities that you can actually make some money off of it, you need to make it in larger quantities, not this little, you know, test tube and beaker on your bench. And so chemical engineering, one of the things that you do is you design and figure out how to scale these things up while still preserving the essence of whatever that chemical or that therapeutic is.
What if I wanted
for example,
to,
like,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, you know, other offshoots, like some of my other colleagues, my friends, if you did like mechanical engineering, maybe you're designing like prosthetics, because that is, you know, something like that. Electrical engineering, you know, maybe you're doing something with, that wasn't my field, so I don't have a good example off the top of my head.
Circuits. It's all circuits all day.
Yeah, I had to take one of those classes, and that was the only one I took.
Hey, so if I wanted to make a mutant goat man, would that fall under bioengineering? Is that a genome?
Kind of.
Is that a genome thing?
Yeah. So that actually was the department I worked in when I went into my PhD program. So I went to So I went to do my PhD program at the University of Washington, and where I did my actual work was in the Department of Molecular Biotechnology. And that was the time of the genome stuff, proteomics, DNA sequencing, and I think the first thing they sequenced was like yeast. Yeah. And then they did, I forget what the other stuff was, but yeah, I mean, that's the kind of stuff that you can do, like, you know, gene splicing and that kind of stuff. I don't keep up with it a lot, but I think these days they talk about like the CRISPR projects and how you can edit genes and you can kind of edit that kind of stuff.
Where would you describe, this is probably a stupid question, but where would you describe like the COVID vaccine or vaccines in general? So bioengineering versus, so is that like medicine? Is a vaccine a medicine and bioengineering would never touch medicine, or how's that work out? Oh, okay. Thank you.
So I'm not an expert in this area, but there's different ways that you can design therapeutics like vaccines. You can do it one of two ways. You can either take like a targeted approach, like, you know, if you're working in the lab and you understand sort of the pathway and the biological pathway that things work, you can take like a targeted approach and try to design something that specifically targets whatever you're trying to do, right? Another way that people do it is they do, I believe it's what's called combinatorial chemistry. And so what that means is that you have a whole library of chemicals. And so you've got, let's call it thousands or millions of different chemicals that are stable and that, you know, that you can potentially produce as therapeutics. And you just kind of run all of those against your target. And so that's kind of more of like a shotgun approach, if you want to call it like that, not as targeted as like, you know, the bioengineering kind of thing that I was mentioning earlier. So I forgot what your original question was,
so like
but
the vaccines, like how is it different than from that as either medicine and then from bioengineering? Where do they touch each other or where are they separate?
Oh, okay. Yeah. So vaccines are, it depends what kind of vaccine you're producing. But for example, the Moderna vaccine and the Pfizer vaccine, those are mRNA vaccines. And so those are like small pieces of protein versus like a inorganic chemical, which is a little bit different, like aspirin. If you're taking aspirin, or if you're taking, like I was mentioning earlier, I've been taking my allergy medication. Those are just straight chemicals. The mRNA kind of stuff, usually stuff that needs to stay in either like a refrigerator or a freezer. That's kind of an easy way to know whether something is more of like a biological versus a chemical.
Oh, I take Montelukast for allergies.
Oh,
is that a chemical?
I don't even know what that is. It sounds like an antibody thing.
Oh, it's like Singulair. It's the
okay.
Singulair is the over the counter or the brand name or whatever.
Yeah, it's like a mist, right?
No, it's a pill. I take a daily pill, and it stops you from sneezing as much as I would out here in the desert.
Yeah, but like vaccines normally you need to keep in like a freezer until they're ready for use. Your allergy pills, you can keep them at room temperature.
Oh, so more like an inert substance.
Yeah.
I heard during the pandemic, somebody was like, people started drinking bleach because it kills viruses.
Oh yeah. That was a big thing in I forget what country. I'm probably gonna mess it up. I want to say Brazil.
Yeah.
So it got the culture on that got so big where like something, I don't know, like
30-40%
of people were doing it, where they forced the government, said, hey, you need to pass a law that if we people, whoever, if us Brazilians are in the hospital because of COVID and we want bleach, you have to give it to us. And they actually passed the law. It got so massive, the misinformation and it started, I think, kind of like viral. Someone did it, someone got COVID, and then they're correct. Bleach kills viruses, right?
Yeah. Bleach kills things.
Also kills
everything else in your body,
including you, right?
Yeah.
Holy cow.
So on a sort of separate but related note, do you know how chemotherapy works?
It's like radioactive
shotguns,
radiation.
It's like shotguns to your body.
Yeah, I mean, whether it's radiation or whether it's some sort of a chemical type of a thing, they're basically, again, targeting the cancerous cells, and they're giving the poison to those cancerous cells, but they're giving it to the patient in a dose that's just enough to kill those bad things, but not enough to kill the person. And so that's why, and I don't, fortunately, I don't know too many people that have had to go through chemotherapy, but that's why people, when they're going through chemotherapy, like they get super weak, maybe, they're losing their hair, or they have bad things going on to their bodies because they're trying to target those bad cells, and they have to, bring them very close to the edge.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of an analogy for that. I don't even have a good analogy, but
I like shotguns.
Well, yeah.
Is there, for bioengineering, is there some typical job titles that you can name off? And then also the second question is, do any doctors come out of bioengineering, or is it?
No, you need med school for that.
Yeah, so I don't.
Yeah, so both of what you say are true. So at least the track that I took with bioengineering, I was on track to become a scientist, whether that's a research scientist, like research and development, or whether that's like a quality assurance, quality control person. And there's different levels, just like any type of a job. You can either be the person that's more hands-on, or you can be in a managerial kind of a role, right? So either early on after you finish your science degree, whether it's a graduate master's degree or a PhD, you're usually not the boss. So you're kind of doing the hands-on lab work, while somebody else with more experience is like, kind of either writing the grants and getting the funding and directing the direction of the research. But those are the kinds of jobs that you can get after getting a bioengineering degree. Okay. Like I mentioned earlier, also, depending on what discipline of bioengineering, like for example, if you're going to mechanical engineering and you're designing prosthetics, then I don't know exactly what those job titles are called, but it's scientist, engineer, that kind of a thing.
No, that is biomechanical. To the other question,
what's that?
Now it's biomechanical if you're making prosthetic legs.
Yeah, for sure. And then the other question that you were asking about research, like medical research. So there are some people that do either MD PhDs or they do an MD with a focus on clinical research. So you can do either, and I have friends that have done both. But basically, the short version of it is, if you're doing lab bench research, usually those people have PhDs. If you're doing research that involves people and patients and clinical trials, you usually need an MD for that kind of a thing.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Hey, Jason, have you ever sprayed chemicals into a rabbit's eyeballs?
Not a rabbit. Actually, I've never actually worked with live animals.
Okay. So
some of the people in the other labs were doing that, but I never have.
So you were near a lab that was spraying chemicals onto armadillos or chimpanzees?
Maybe monkeys, maybe rats.
Gotcha. It's always the poor rats.
Yeah, the closest I think I got to that was dissecting earthworms, fetal pigs, things like that.
Okay.
So you said you started your PhD and then decided that wasn't for you. Was at the moment. Was it? Tell me about the moment. Maybe like were you doing testing on something in a lab and then you just decided?
No, I met a girl.
Or yeah. Did you meet a girl or did you decide that was a boring job or what boring future and then you stopped?
What made you stop that train, right?
Yeah, that particular thing wasn't for a girl. It was actually it was actually kind of, it took a little while for me to finally make that decision, because kind of to put it into context, like I was telling you, I was an undergrad bioengineering and then I entered the PhD program. So it's like, I've been on this track for so many years, and like, am I going to just, make a U-turn or make a stop to this? Right. And so
go ahead and actually,
there were kind of two things that started me with thinking about. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, get lengthy with the story too, because I'm actually pretty curious. So like, meaning you said on that road, it was a long journey. So is the master's degree up to that point already, were you in 5 years, 6 years at that point before?
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Wait, where'd you go?
Yeah, I'll start from the start.
Where'd you go to college? Was it UCSD?
No, I did my undergrad at Berkeley.
Berkeley, okay. Impressive.
And then I did my PhD program was at the University of Washington in Seattle.
Okay.
And so a PhD program is usually 6 years. And so when I went up to Seattle, I was taking classes my first couple of years, and I was taking on my own thesis project starting in like middle of the first year going into the second year. So now, rather than being on somebody else's project and kind of doing what other people are saying, like I'm kind of calling the shots and I'm directing my own project. And so what I was starting to learn at that time is, when you're working in a lab, sometimes like the stuff I'm working on, because I wasn't spraying things into armadillos and rabbits and things like that, I was working in test tubes, and I couldn't necessarily see like what I was working on, because it's like a clear solution and you put it into an instrument and something comes out. And one of the frustrations was like, if it doesn't come out right, like I don't exactly know what happened. So like I have to try it again. And this is like a week-long process. Oh. So that was one thing that kind of got me a little bit frustrated and irritated. And then the other thing, which is kind of trivial, but actually it's kind of important to figuring out what you want to do. So when you work in a lab, you pretty much always have to wear gloves. Sometimes you have to wear a lab coat. Sometimes you have to wear like a full on, I was in a semiconductor wafer kind of making thing. So I had to put on the whole bodysuit sometimes too, but you pretty much always have to put on gloves. And so one of the kind of trivial things, but it matters if you're going to do this every day, is I got tired of putting on gloves, because after working like a whole day, like your hands get all sweaty and clammy, and it's like now my hands are all raw, and that's no fun.
Funny chance. And are you an anti-mask COVID person?
I'm not an anti-masker.
Sorry,
I should go get gloves and make us wear them for the rest of this podcast.
I'm down.
Yeah, you can, but I'm not. My hands are clear.
He's gonna go grab gloves. We're gonna join you on this story.
Yeah, there you go. You can visualize it. But what actually kind of turned me and what made me leave the PhD program is I was mentioning that I could finish my master's degree. So that would take about 2 years. And then I could leave and work in industry and see if I liked that better. And if I did, I could always come back to the program at University of Washington and not have to reapply and just come back. That was one of the nice things that made it somewhat of an easier decision. And what finally got me to leave the program with my master's is actually talking with some of the postdocs. So if you don't know, or people don't know, after you finish your PhD, if you want to be a research scientist, you usually do one or more postdocs. Oh, that's awesome. Mine weren't blue though.
Your gloves weren't blue, they're white.
No, they were like latex color.
Oh, like the chalky ones?
Beige. Yeah.
For our audio listeners that aren't watching, Emmett just brought over 2 sets of blue gloves, and we are going to wear this for the entire podcast in support of Jason's
all the suffering,
all the suffering that he had to put up with.
Yeah,
I'm kind of wondering why you had those at such the ready.
We were using these for cleaning.
Yeah.
I try to help. My girlfriend is much better at cleaning stuff than I am, and I try to help when I can. And
okay.
If you got
they look pretty tight.
If you got to clean out a drain or something, then gloves are the way to go, because then you don't touch the gross stuff. But
all right, so you're saying postdocs. You're going to explain post.
Yeah. So there was the gloves, there was the working with test tubes and not being able to see what's going wrong, and kind of having to just do it all over again. And then I started talking to the postdocs. The postdocs have finished their PhD, so now they've spent 6 years or more finishing their PhD, because that's the other joke too, is they say that you can finish your PhD in 6 years, but it's usually the 6+ program.
Yeah.
And then after you finish your PhD, you usually will go and do like a postdoc, which is a year or two. And that's when I kind of found out, like, what do postdocs make in terms of salary? And so this was around 1999, call it 2000, right? So this is like 20 something years ago. So take that with a grain of salt. But I'm finding out that these postdocs are making like 30 grand, maybe 35 grand.
Oh.
And if they've now finished their PhD, right? Let's assume they go there right after finishing college.
Yeah.
And so they're somewhere in their, call it early 30s, maybe late 20s, early 30s. And I remember pretty clearly there was one postdoc that was working in the same lab as me that had at least 3 or 4 kids, I think. And so he was trying to support he and his family on this postdoc salary, and he's now in his, let's just call it early 30s. And I'm like, is this the road that I want to take myself on?
So sorry to jump back. You said 6 years on the PhD, that as in 4 for your bachelor's and then 6 more for the PhD? Holy crap.
Right. So after you finish your bachelor's degree, if you want to go into a PhD program, it's usually another 6 years.
Damn.
Dude, I finished my accounting degree in 2001, and I got a job right out of college. I was 24 years old at $40,000 a year.
Yeah,
and that was barely enough to like pay for my Dodge Neon payments, car insurance, RBs, and my rent was something like $500 or $600 a month. You get utilities, and I go drinking on Fridays or something, and I had no money left. That was it. Yeah, that was.
I did.
It chewed me up.
I think I did 7 months of an accelerated college program, and then I got a job at IBM making. It was a bottom level IBM job, but I think I was making 36 a year, so I was making more than the postdocs.
Yeah.
Yeah, in your early 20s, if you finish your bachelor's degree in your early 20s, now you're making the same thing that a postdoc is making 10 years later. So that was one thing that kind of opened my eyes. It's like, is this the lifestyle? Is this the path that I want to take myself down? So to the point I was making earlier, I had that option to come back to my program within a year without having to reapply. And so that was my chance to go out and see, hey, do I like doing this stuff in an industry setting versus an academic setting? If it's better, I'll go back. If it's not, then I'm not going back.
Yeah.
Is it by chance? So if you would have got your PhD, or was there conversations where, like, if you got your PhD, your opportunities for a big salary, meaning, so you say you waste 4 years for your bachelor's, 6 years for the PhD, 1 or plus 2 years.
It's all a waste.
So say 11 or 12 years, and then is there talk where other people that finish and then afterwards they're working like $300K a year, $400K a year, or they start a company and they become rich? Is that?
Oh, like, is there a big prize eventually?
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah, is there like a exponential kind of a jump, right?
Yeah.
So there are people that will try to start their own companies. If they went and tried to get a job, like with an established company, I I never really went that route, so I didn't look very carefully into the starting salaries, but I don't think it was 300, 400 a year. It was probably, I would say probably around 100, maybe 150, let's call it. But you put in all that time and you put in all that effort. So yeah, you should be rewarded for doing that. But now you're, however many years, 10, 15 years out of college, and you're starting to approach six figures, which is great. But there's also other ways to do that.
Oh yeah. Totally. Yeah.
Without torturing animals for 10 years.
Yeah, torturing animals. And then also probably the student loans that you rake up during that time, because if it's 12 years of, you're probably paying about 10 years worth of schooling. So that's whatever.
So I don't know if this is necessarily the case for everybody, but a lot of PhD programs, you actually don't have to pay tuition.
Oh.
So they'll put you on a stipend or they'll put you on a grant so that you don't really have additional fees that you're racking up.
Okay.
But then what does the school get out of it if they're not making money on you?
You're doing the research and they own the intellectual property of that. So if you develop something, it would go through the school and they own that.
Yeah. Remember, I think Milos, we had a PhD.
He was curing brain cancer.
Molecular engineering.
Molecular biologist?
Yeah, and he was working on like curing cancer, and then he was saying that college would get it wasn't UC was it Berkeley? No.
He was up in the Bay Area somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah. So he was working on a way to a specific type of cancer, and then the college would get the benefits out of that.
And at the very least, even if it's not something that's commercially viable, you generate publications out of this. So if the college, the university is a research university, then they get prestige out of having these publications in certain journals. And there's like a hierarchy of journals depending on what specific field you're in. There's like
Nature.
There's like the more prestigious journals, and then there's the others.
Yeah.
So how I'm gonna flag this if you don't want to answer it. It's fine.
There's a good setup.
No problem.
How much did you rake up in student loans towards your because you said you don't have to pay for the so then the master's you have to pay for. So the PhD part you said you didn't have to pay for, or?
So when I entered the PhD program, I was on a certain grant or some sort of a stipend my first year. And then I was on a different grant or stipend the second year. So I didn't actually generate any debt in my 2 years getting my master's program. That, though, is probably because I went in with the intention of doing a PhD. Most master's programs, at least from my experience, they may or may not necessarily support you financially like that. So if it's a straight master's program for like 2 years or 1 year, that isn't necessarily the case, but a lot of PhD programs that I know of will support their students.
And another question that I'll flag. My cousin, he went to Berkeley for some time, but he was able to, because of his parents' income, he was able to get through with government help and whatnot. And he was able to get through Berkeley with a very, basically almost paying nothing, I think. I mean, he had to pay for books and stuff like that. But then something happened, I think the second or third year, one of his parents started making more money and bumped him out of that
low income help of
yeah. And then so Berkeley's like, okay, well for your stuff, there's schooling that you're doing, it's going to be about $120,000 a year.
Woo.
Wow.
And he's like, well, I'm dropping out. What do you mind, like, when you went to Berkeley, or was that the case for you? Was that the cost back then? And
back in the 90s, yeah.
Yeah, my cousin, he went back in, what was that? I want to say that was 2010-ish, somewhere in that ballpark.
Okay. So I went to Berkeley from 93 to 97. And I was fortunate that my parents were able to help out with the tuition and those kind of costs. So I didn't really rack up a lot of financial loans and stuff like that. What I did do, and this may be something to flag, is they offer the subsidized loans and then they offer the unsubsidized loans, right? So the subsidized loans, they will let you keep at 0% while you're still a student. So I took those and I was able to use those funds, but the unsubsidized loans I would decline because I didn't need to take them. So, I was in a fortunate position where when I finished my 4-year degree, I didn't have debt that I took on for the purpose of paying my education.
Oh, okay. Yeah, for I did, just random story. I did mine with a subsidized loan, and I think in the end I owed 44,000, somewhere around there. And that was tough because getting out of college and then looking for an IT job. When you get out of college, you're gonna. I mean, for me, I wasn't lucky enough to land some big pay. So I mean, I was at like $18 an hour, then trying to pay off 44,000. That was just ridiculous.
Yeah, that's the sad part about, because I still work in the academic fields now, and I do run across people and I talk with people who do have real financial loan, financial aid debt.
Yeah.
And in some sense, it's tough to get out from under it. I have friends that have gone the route of doctor or lawyer or whatever the case may be. And I didn't go to medical school, but I know that it comes with a pretty heavy price tag. And so, a lot of doctors make what you think is a pretty decent living, but they're also dealing with trying to pay off these student loans. And those are the kinds of things that we don't always see in the background. We just kind of see the front image of it, but we don't necessarily see all the other stuff that people are dealing with in the background.
I have a solution.
Oh, nice.
Well, we have 4 branches of military, right? Depending on how you want to count it up. They all train doctors.
Right.
We just need to ramp up all our military. We just need to be pumping out military doctors because they're getting paid to go be an Army doctor, right?
But that'll come out of your tax money, I would think.
Oh, that's most of our budget anyway. You wouldn't even notice it. It's like trade in 1 stealth bomber or something. You wouldn't even notice. Just
I like it.
Train them thousands of more military doctors. And we already have a network of hospitals around the nation called VA hospitals that treat people essentially for free. If you're a veteran, you can walk in there.
I would say the dark side of that equation is everything's about money, not just America, the world. So
yeah,
they would only take enough tax money to build military doctors as long as you have enough old people paying medical bills. I think the supply and demand
it would only happen if some politician could make money on it.
Yeah,
I think to the point you all are making,
yeah.
And it's a sad, but it's a true statement, is a lot of times when you want to figure out what's going on and why things are happening, you just follow the dollar, right? It's all about the money.
Yeah.
And while it's true that and I'm not a veteran and I'm not directly in that space, but from what I know, I have friends that are veterans, and while they provide medical care, the level of medical care sometimes is not satisfactory, at least to my friends. And so, my family, we've been on PPO insurance, and right now we're with Kaiser. And
PPO is the good stuff, right?
Let's just say
VIP.
that. Yeah, let's just say that a lot of times you get what you pay for, and knock on wood, my family's pretty healthy right now. But if something goes wrong, then it's a balance for those health organizations of balancing, like, what are the dollars going into these therapies versus maintaining profitability and also taking care of your patients.
Yeah, but that's the problem, is you're supporting 3 giant profit-making industries, right? You got to support the doctors make a ton of money, the hospital makes a ton of money, the insurance companies make a ton of money, the pharmaceuticals make a ton of money, all the lawyers make a ton of money. So everybody's making money off of, I got cancer or something, right? So if we had a system where you could get basic cancer treatment, if you got more money, then you can do whatever you want, right? But if we had a system to take care of your, even if it didn't cover cancer, if it covered basic stuff like, hey, my leg's broken, like, what does a broken leg cost you these days, right? If you walked into a hospital with no insurance with a broken leg, what's that going to run you? 50 grand, 100 grand, 300 grand? Like, who knows? Because the numbers are all just nonsense, insanity. And then to compare it, like, you could go to a veterinarian, right? A veterinarian could fix a broken leg on a dog or a horse or an elephant or a buffalo or whatever, right? So is a human broken leg substantially different?
I think that was a Seinfeld episode.
Yeah. So, I mean, so why does it not cost $317,000 to fix your dog's broken leg? Sure, there's a lot of liability, but then now you're talking about people making profits, right? So it's insane.
Yeah.
It's an insane system. Yeah, it's cuckoo crazy.
During your,
I think if you guys can figure that out, you'll be in pretty good shape.
Yeah,
America would be in good shape.
Multiply up the VA to train more and more Army doctors, and then just start including more and more people. Right, just lower the age. Like, hey, everybody over 90, you get free basic VA coverage, and then we got enough. Okay, now it's down to 85, and we cover everybody down to 70 years old, and you can just expand it.
Yeah.
And help people in the U.S. with our tax dollars.
By any chance, Jason, through your time working in sales, so it was Allergen was the company. Then
Novartis
was that also a medical company also?
Yeah. So they were also a pharmaceutical company at the time.
Yeah,
at the time I was working with Novartis, I was promoting blood pressure medications, and then also it was another medication for irritable bowel syndrome with constipation. And so if you all are interested in Googling it at some point, we had interesting lunchtime conversations with the doctors around the Bristol stool scale.
The Bristol stool scale. Okay.
Yeah. So in a nutshell, you can Google this on your own time, but the Bristol stool scale, from what I can remember, goes from 1 to 7. And it basically talks about the consistency of your stool.
Yeah.
And this is while we're having lunch with the doctors, right? Trying to eat. And
wait, so is rock hard constipation, is that the 1 or the 7?
I don't remember which one is on which end.
You were an expert in this.
But let's call it number 1, right?
Okay.
You got it pretty close though. If you look it up, there's on one end of it, it says hard and lumpy like nuts.
Oh. Okay. Like nuts.
And on the other side, it was basically just straight water.
just crying out of your butt.
I didn't do this, but one of my colleagues that was promoting the same medication, they did, I think for Halloween or something, they did the Bristol stool scale out of candy.
What? Oh, they made the scale?
Oh, got it.
Yeah. They made the hard and lumpy like nuts. Those are maybe like Whoppers.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Yeah. Then you got Snickers maybe in the middle.
Yeah.
And then whatever you have for watery stuff.
Yeah, gummy bears in the middle. I don't know, watery. Yeah.
Pudding, maybe chocolate pudding.
The original reason why I asked if all three were medical companies, connecting to the potential corruptness of the American medical system and insurance system, just from
the profit motive,
just from your perspective, the things that you worked on through sales, what comes to mind, the things that you saw?
Yeah. I mean, when you are looking at it from the outside and you're not necessarily in the industry, and this is true of a lot of different industries and lines of work. I mean, you look at it from the outside and you see, like we were talking about earlier, all these different people and entities making all this money, right? And just to talk about the pharmaceutical industry, people look at like the pharmaceutical companies and they look at like the price of medications and the price of insurance and all that other stuff.
Yeah,
and
it's highway robbery.
It's highway robbery, right? It's super expensive. But what they don't see is think about our quality of lives these days. So compared to 50 years ago, I would say that we probably are living longer. And the people that are living longer are probably living a better quality of life than people who are living to that age 50 years ago. Mm-hmm. And so where does that come from? Part of it, I would argue, comes at least from these different therapies and these different medications that are available to us. And where does that come from? That doesn't just come from, hey, I'm going to make one thing and all of a sudden it's going to be a blockbuster. It comes from, the price of innovation and the price of research and development, where if you have 100 or 1,000 prospects and you're running them through the research and development phase, then the regulatory phase, doing all the clinical trials, because these are going to go into people. So you need to test them on patients. That all costs money. And so if you have 1,000 of these things coming through the pipeline and only one of them comes all the way through, then part of the cost of that therapy or that medication is going back into the research and development pipeline so that the companies can continue to innovate. And so I think that's the thing that we sometimes miss is that, we go to the pharmacy or we go to the hospital and we get this bill and it's like, wow, this is a lot. Yeah. But at the same time, one of the things that I like to kind of focus on these days is we talk about like resources, right? Whether it's time or money, or you talk about your health. And, you know, I could probably eat better and I try to exercise as much as I can, but health is one of those things that once you start to lose it, it's very hard to get back. And there's a lot of people out there who are like super filthy rich billionaires who start to go down the road of being, you know, having some sort of disease or not healthy, and all the money in the world can't save them.
Oh, Bruce Willis right now, right?
Yeah. Or like, was it Steve Jobs? Did he?
He died of cancer, right?
From my understanding of that story, he wanted to go holistic and he denied modern technology. And
What? The guy that invented the iPhone was anti-technology?
I might be wrong. That's what I've read. And then on top of that, at the point where he decided, he's like, okay, I need medical assistance or modern medical assistance. It was too late by the time he decided that.
Eating daisies did not get him anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you or somebody chooses to use modern medicine, people will maybe have that option, but where did that come from? It didn't just like, hey, you know, we need some medication, so let's research it and we'll have it next week. Yeah. It comes from years and decades and, you know, lifetimes of doing this research and having a lot of things end up on the cutting room floor because they don't end up being anything.
So pharmaceutical companies aren't any more profitable than a regular company.
I wouldn't necessarily say that. Like,
yes,
I haven't. Being a scientist, I am based on data, right? So I'm not going to make these grand claims without having the data.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, there's pharmaceutical companies that are publicly traded, so that's public information. You can compare that against any other publicly traded company and see, you know, what's going on.
Yeah. See if they're making money hand over fist. You know, banks make a lot of profits, right? But there's another option called credit unions, which are like a nonprofit bank. Wouldn't that be cool to have a nonprofit credit union pharmaceutical company where all the money goes back to the members that isn't used for operations?
Yeah, I like that idea.
Okay,
we need to start a pharmaceutical credit union.
Jason
Emmett has a lot of ideas. I think it must be coming from those blue gloves that you all are wearing.
Yes, you can call me Dr. Emmett while I'm wearing these gloves.
How
I
long?
can see you're sweating more.
Yeah.
See, now you know what I went through 20 years ago and why I do what I do now.
It's like a hand swamp.
How long?
And it's only been, what, 30, 45 minutes? I had to wear these things for like 8 hours a day.
Oh, no. Okay. I'm going to try to wear this throughout the entire podcast, but we'll see if I can last.
Are you quitting already?
It's you could see how, I mean, the camera, this is going to come up on 4K, so hopefully the camera could see the liquid inside my hands.
It's like pooling in there.
Yeah.
I have pretty dry hands in general, but I'm still feeling
Here,
a little.
put your hand up to the camera, that camera.
Oh, that's right, yeah. So Lim's got more of a glove swamp.
When we replay this in 4K, hopefully the people could see it. So out of curiosity, Emmett's idea of a credit union medical, what would you call
pharmaceutical?
A medical union pharmaceutical. Jason, kind of like play devil's advocate, or where do you think that falls apart in a real life setting?
Because we want money.
As like a nonprofit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, I'll give you my take. I'm not an expert in banks or credit unions either, but I guess I'll give you my take with what I understand of that. Nonprofits, and I haven't run one, and I don't, I'm not involved with a nonprofit, but a nonprofit organization doesn't mean that they don't make profit. It just means that they put it back into the establishment, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So again, going back to the cycle of innovation and research and development, if you're going to have your organization, let's call it, whether it's a bank or a credit union or whatever it is, remain viable over the long term, you need to continue to put out new products and, new things that people are going to consume. And so if it's a nonprofit, it's not like you're not going to try to capitalize on whatever the market will value your stuff at.
Mm-hmm.
It just might not necessarily go to the place that for-profit companies would distribute their earnings.
Let me ask you this. So from the outside perspective, say a regular person on the street, would say, hey, it looks like you invented a new irritable bowel treatment. Either people have an irritable bowel or they don't. why do you need to go around and have lunch with a doctor to get more of this stuff prescribed? Why can't people, why don't doctors just know about medication and prescribe whatever you need? Why is there a sales aspect to pharmaceuticals?
Sure.
Right? Shouldn't it be either I have the condition or I don't? Why is there an army of salespeople in the pharmaceutical industry?
Yeah, that's a fair question.
Yeah.
And that honestly is part of the reason that I left the pharmaceutical industry. So one of the reasons that you need salespeople to talk to the doctors is because if you've been to a doctor's office, they're usually super busy, and they're usually like, I don't know if you've had to go to the doctor recently, but they usually end up starting to run behind. They have super long days,
like an hour
so
every time.
Yeah. How'd they go to 8 years of medical school and they can't show up on time for an appointment?
Well, actually, this is one of the things I learned from being a pharmaceutical rep is if you can book the first appointment in the morning or the first appointment after lunch, because then, like many things, they don't start to back up so much. But to the point that you're making, like if these people are seeing patients and then they have to write up their charts and, do whatever else they have to do to run their business, when are they really going to have the time to do all this other research into these different areas that may or may not directly affect what they need to do day to day? So what the sales reps do is they'll come in, and obviously there's different types of sales reps, and some are more reputable than others, let's just say. And I try to keep myself, reputable and share the facts. But you come in, you show them clinical studies, you show them things that are more objective. And so that they have now the information, at least the way that I used to sell to them, that they can use to try to decide whether that therapy is good for their patient or not. And so that's one of the reasons that there are sales reps. That being said, to the point I was making earlier, part of the reason that I left the pharmaceutical industry is because some of these clinics, and there's been a lot of consolidation going on in the past 5 or 10 years, or at least since I've left. There's a lot of large clinics and large medical establishments that are kind of buying up the small ones.
Okay.
And so the larger conglomerates are kind of shutting out the sales reps altogether. For the point that you're making, which is we don't want our doctors influenced by these sales reps, and we'll feed them the information that we want to feed them. And part of it is going back to what we were talking about with like HMOs and Kaiser and VA.
Yeah.
A lot of times they'll use the most cost-effective treatment. Yeah. And the most cost-effective treatment is not always the best treatment for the patient.
Yeah, amputate.
Maybe not amputate, but yeah, I think you get the idea.
Oh, okay.
So that was another issue, is the access for salespeople is getting harder and harder. So that was another reason that I kind of, that I went the way that I did.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that is kind of nice sometimes is that we would bring samples for the doctors as well. And so when you bring the samples for the doctors, the samples eventually go to the patients. And so now the patient can test out that medication without having to pay anything. And if there's, if it doesn't improve their condition, or if they have like some sort of hopefully a mild side effect or something like that, now they haven't spent the money either with their copay or paying for the full cost of the medication to find out that this is not the right medication for me.
Interesting.
Wait, what are some of the side effects of irritable bowel medications? Because you got a runny butt, and you're like, I need to stop this up. What am I going to trade off?
I don't remember. Yeah, I'll pull out my prescribing information booklet when I get there. But
I'll trade a runny nose for.
I do know that one of the competitor medications, I won't name the name, but one of the competitor medications that we used to cite is explosive diarrhea.
Oh, so it just gets worse.
You try to stop it up.
You swing the pendulum too far the other way.
Oh, Lordy. I apologize to all the listeners who suffer some kind of irritable bowel, because we're straight up making fun of it at this point.
Yeah. Working in the sales for Allergen and the other two, was there commission or bonus additions?
Yeah. So the way that, and again, I don't know if this has changed, but the way that I was compensated is I had a base salary. And then I had a commission that was based on sales targets. And so that's one of the things that sometimes is a little bit challenging being in pharmaceutical sales, whether you're the rep or whether you're the manager or whatever the case may be. And this also is probably the case with other sales professions as well, just that I haven't done them, is you have goals and you have targets that you need to meet. Yeah. And the thing that's sometimes challenging with pharmaceutical sales is that the data that you're evaluated on comes from like a third party producer of that data. So unlike, let's say, I've never sold cars, but if you sell a car, you kind of know whether you've sold that car to that customer or not, right? I don't directly dispense the medication to the patient. They go to the pharmacy to do that. And there's other companies that collect that data and then basically sell it back to the pharmaceutical company so that they can measure their sales reps. When you have goals and targets like that, I remember that the weekly data would always come out on a Friday. And so it's like everybody's like sitting on pins and needles waiting for the weekly data to come out to see how they did, but you don't necessarily have that much direct influence on what is that number going to be for that week.
Yeah, that's weird.
So that's sometimes a little frustrating, sometimes a little scary.
Fucking ruin your weekend.
Yeah, it can.
And your paycheck.
It can ruin your quarter or your year.
My train of thought kind of on that question was, if someone were to be watching this, someone that's young and getting into this field, is it something that they want to get into? So then my other question would be, so it sounds like there's stress to hit those targets, but then there's also probably really good months. So what those good months, is it really good where you're 200% your paycheck, or is that only like 10%? Or
have you ever bought a Dodge Viper?
So that's kind of a separate topic. One of the other nice things about being a pharmaceutical sales rep, and I guess other outside sales jobs in general, is you get a company car.
Oh, okay.
So for about probably between my time at Novartis and finishing up at Novo Nordisk, that was about, let's call it 8 years. I had no car payment and I didn't pay for gas, especially nowadays where gas is $6 a gallon right now.
Highway robbery.
Yeah. So I had to keep track of my work miles versus my personal miles, but I didn't have a car payment for like 8 years.
Nice. Was it like a BMW or was it like a Toyota Yaris?
So my first car was, I think it was a Grand Prix. Is that a Pontiac?
Yeah, Pontiac Grand Prix.
So I had a Pontiac Grand Prix, and then I had a Chevy Equinox.
Okay.
And then I don't know how they pulled this off, but when I moved over to Novo Nordisk, I think that's where I got the Chevy Equinox. And then somehow they got like a fleet deal with Audi. And so I had an Audi A4 for a while, I think, when I was a sales trainer. And then when I was a district manager, I had a Q5, I think, the minivan, the SUV.
Yeah, nice.
And those are solid cars. That was actually, I've only gotten into one really bad accident, and that was in that Audi Q5.
Yeah.
And long story short, it was a 3-car pileup, and I was the middle car. The car in the front, the guy had to leave in the ambulance. The car in the back, the lady ended up with a broken arm, and my car in the middle, like I just got out and walked away.
Whoa.
Just danced off on his PPO.
Didn't need the PPO.
Yeah, it was Friday afternoon. I was trying to look for a ride home, or trying to, find a way home.
This car's trashed.
I'm gonna flag another question I'm about to ask.
He's going deep.
What
can you defend the whole pharmaceutical industry?
What was your salaries on those that span of jobs from you said 7 years, and then what were the bonuses? So then, like, if a listener is listening, like, is it a sustainable wage, and is it a lucrative wage also?
Sure.
Better than PhD money.
Well,
it depends. Right? So when I took my first pharma sales job, I think my base salary was somewhere in the 50s.
Okay.
And I think my target bonus was in around 20. So total compensation, if you hit right at target, is about 70.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good money.
Yeah. And so this is, again, my path kind of was my path, but some people can get these kinds of jobs either right out of college or soon after college. And that's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good line of work for somebody who's like recently out of college.
Yeah. And then where's the, did it start to go up for you? Like as the years went on, like were you getting better base pay and more bonuses, or how's that work? And also what's the average you think also?
Yeah. So it did go up as I went, but part of it also is because I was also kind of moving up and getting promotions. I was moving up into different types of positions. So you can, if you were to stay in pharmaceutical sales rep position, your target bonus doesn't really change too much, because I think for the most part it's the same for all sales reps.
Oh, okay.
But your base salary will increase over time. And then as you move on to other positions, like I was saying, I ended up becoming a sales trainer, which was on the way of becoming a district manager. That's when my base salary would jump, as well as my target bonus.
Are you trying to make a path for people to become pharmaceutical sales reps?
I think when we do these podcasts, my common train of thought is this profession, whoever the guest is,
yeah,
if someone's starting in that career, what would they want to know? I
don't think there's not a ton of this job around, right? Would it be hard to get into, or is it I can go tomorrow and go find a pharmaceutical sales rep job?
I think it has changed since I did since I left. I think there's probably less pharmaceutical sales reps out there for the reasons we talked about earlier, that the clinics are sort of shutting out the reps and there's some consolidation within the medical field. That being said, there are still positions out there, because I have friends that are still doing this.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think it's still a good job. And I think to the point that you were asking earlier, how do you get into that? That was one of the things you were asking, right?
Yeah.
So when I was a hiring manager, we'd get people who are already in the industry and trying to change companies, and we get those people, right? But for the people that are coming in without previous pharmaceutical sales experience, a lot of them that would come through have previous outside sales experience in a different industry. And for some of the people that are earlier on in their career, one of the companies that we seem to get a lot of people from, because of their training and because of how they're trained as a salesperson, was Enterprise Rent-A-Car.
Oh, I knew he was going to say Enterprise.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, we would get people from different lines of outside sales work and even inside sales sometimes, but we would get our fair share of people that were coming from Enterprise. Enterprise
is a weird, it was back in my day. It was a weird, like funnel, like dudes that come out of college. I guess chicks too, but a lot of people I knew that came out of college with business degrees would end up at Enterprise, and they go, "Oh, they offered me a manager position." And it's like, well, everybody starts off as a manager, and it's just this weird funnel of like they're catching people straight out of college, and then they bounce out somewhere else into the sales world or into something else. So it's a strange, like, I don't know, it's like a vacuum that sucks up college grads.
Do you think it's because the Enterprise? I have no idea. I'm just throwing out an idea.
Yeah, I don't know.
Does Enterprise have some type of really super competitive commission, or not even competitive, a very great commission contract or something for their?
I don't know what it was. I wish we were still in touch with Mateen. We could see what his experience was.
I don't know for sure, but I think they had a good training program. I think they also, Enterprise does rental cars, but I think they also get something if they end up selling a car. So there's other ways to, to be able to make a few bucks. And I don't know what their recruiting thing is out of, people at the colleges or whatever the case may be, but they seem to also be trained in a good way. That we used to do to try to train our salespeople. In other words, to try to figure out, like, we're not. There's these sales models out there that's like always be closing and be a hard closer and like don't give up until they say yes. Like Wolf of Wall Street type of stuff.
Right.
Obviously, there's people that do that even in the pharmaceutical sales industry, but for the most part, what we would try to do is we would try to train people to figure out what is something that your product can provide that is unmet need for the doctor and the patient, eventually the customer. So we're not typically the, hard charging salesperson, or at least I wasn't.
Right.
I would try to ask questions to try to uncover what is a need and how my product fits that need as a solution.
Yeah. So something weird about enterprise. So they have good training. They have terrible retention, which necessitates great recruitment. What an odd thing to have happened. Because I don't know if that's the case now. Yeah.
But also, I think if you're getting some of the recent college grads, sometimes people don't know what they want to do. And so maybe they're trying something out like we were talking about earlier, and maybe sales in general, or maybe outside sales doesn't work for them.
Yeah. Hey, what do you think about timeshare sales? You ever been to a timeshare presentation?
I have. I have never been in the delivering salesperson seat, but I've been in the target seat, and we are timeshare owners.
Yeah,
that tells you anything.
It worked.
Yeah, and we've increased our membership at least once or twice.
Okay, so you love it and you use it.
We use it. Yeah. I mean, we use it.
Nice. Yeah, so I sold timeshares for about 2 months down in North San Diego. I won't say the name, but there was a huge timeshare operation, and I was doing mortgages, and I got my real estate license. And my aunt went and worked there, and she was like, "Oh, it's a great gig. You should come try this out." And I was too honest to do well in the mortgage world at that time. This is like 05, 06. And so I was like, sure, I'll go try timeshare. Sounds good. Give it a shot. And I did it for about 2 months. So industry-wide, the average is like 8% close rate. And I think I was like 12.7 or something. And they're like, hard charging, right? No, everybody's got to be up at 20%. You could be at 12.7. That's great, but we want you at 20%. You got to close more people, got to get more people to buy, right? So to me, timeshares was this weird world of kind of like the Top Gun of sales, where if somebody goes to a used car dealer or they're at a mattress store, like at least they were looking for a car or a mattress when they walked in. You walk into a timeshare presentation with the pact with your partner, like no matter what happens, we're just here to get the free thing. And then we're gonna say no matter what. We're not gonna buy anything. We're just gonna get our free stuff. We'll get the free tickets, and then we'll leave, right? And so you have like 30 minutes to turn people around from the death pact of no to loving you and shaking your hand and thanking you as they fork over like 15 or 30 grand. And so I think for some people it's a great tool for vacations, but I didn't think it was good for everybody.
Yeah.
And so that's
actually, from where you all are broadcasting, that actually is where we signed up for our timeshare. It was in a Las Vegas property.
Yeah.
And to the point that you were making, Emmett, I think we were there on a vacation. We were going to sit in on this 30, maybe 45-minute presentation, get our gift card or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
And 3 or 4 hours later, we were signed up into a basic package.
Nice. Yeah. So I think for some people it makes sense. Like if you want to do a family trip and you want to have it scheduled and you want to commit ahead of time and say, look, we got to go because we already bought it, right? We got our week planned or whatever. Then I think for busy people and people that want to try to find a different kind of family experience, it makes sense. But for a lot of people, it doesn't make sense. So when they wanted to push me to sell to people that it didn't make sense to, I was like, I don't know if I want to hang around, right? Because it was that sell everybody, sell to the moon kind of environment. So
right.
On a little bit of a tangent, on your bio you mentioned you doing sales and then that you're an introvert. Is that correct? So
yeah, I would call myself an introvert, and part of sales training is doing all these personality profile things and learning about yourself. And yeah, I mean my DISC profile, my Herman Brain profile, those all kind of lead towards being more of an introvert.
How would you describe the sales job and then being an introvert and how you overcame it or found a good...
is it painful every time or
yeah, so when I was first asked to go into sales, I wasn't really interested because I was coming out of the track of being a scientist, and then I was working in an office in a cubicle, and to the point that we were talking about earlier, when I heard, hey, why don't you do some time in sales? I was like, car salesman? I don't want to be that kind of person, right? But what I found is that aside from what your natural tendencies and personality is, one of the things that I found is that one of my strengths is versatility. And so while my natural tendency is to prefer to do things that are a little bit more introverted, I can still flex out and I can still, present, or I can, talk to a customer, or I can teach a class, or whatever the case may be. But it just takes me a little bit more energy than maybe somebody who's naturally outgoing and an extrovert. Mm-hmm. So I think that's an important point, is that just because you're naturally wired a certain way doesn't mean that you can't do something else. It just means that maybe it takes you a little bit more energy to do that than somebody who naturally likes that kind of stuff. Yeah. And so it also has its benefits as well. And I think that this is something that made me successful as a salesperson, and I like to think just successful in general these days, is that as an introvert, I don't necessarily need to be the center of attention. I don't need to be the life of the party. I don't need to be heard all day long. I would prefer to listen to what people are telling me and try to process that and have like a meaningful conversation. Yeah. Versus just, spout off whatever I feel like I want to talk about.
But you're the star of this podcast.
Yeah, that's true. So that's why I'm putting out the energy right now and flexing for you all right now.
Got it. I'm just going to kind of regurgitate what you said, but it was a friend, he explained to me the introvert and extrovert thing, because I was taking it as a what you like to be around. That's what I thought, like, meaning extrovert, I like to be around. I thought I like to be around people. Introvert, I like to be by myself, but it's more about the energy. He was saying, my friend told me, it's not about being around a lot or less people. It's where you receive and where you give your energy. So if being around a lot of people zaps your energy and you're introverted in that way, so then you need whatever your energy gaining event is. If you are better reading a book at home and you get energy from that. If you're better at cooking food by yourself at home and you get energy from that. So anyways, just kind of the energy thing really is.
Or I'll throw out a different kind of angle on that. So somebody typically who's an introvert likes to build a few deep relationships with fewer people, versus an extrovert, like, they're fine socializing with strangers like all day long. Yeah. So for me, I would rather have a nice conversation with close friends, and you guys are good guys. You seem like good guys. So this is not
friends now.
Stretching me extremely far, especially since you did the glove thing for me. But yeah,
there's going to be a pile of water in on this.
Yeah, Liam's probably got a puddle in front of him right now. But I think that's a point, is the introvert doesn't mean that they can't hang out with people. It just means that maybe they derive energy from a different type of a setting. So like when I was in pharmaceutical sales, especially when I was a manager, part of that is networking and socializing and hanging out at the bar and doing that kind of thing, right? And I would rather go up, like you were saying, Liam, go up to my room and watch a ball game or, watch TV or something like that. But I knew that for the betterment of my career and my progression, like, I need to not do that necessarily. Like, I don't need to be out there till the last person to close down the bar, but I need to be out there at least socializing and making sure that people know me and people, kind of like me. And again, can I do it? Yeah, I can do it. But it just takes me more energy to do that. And I have to kind of make a conscious decision to do that versus, hey, I just want to go down to the bar and socialize.
I need to close down the bar less often.
Let's jump to more of the most recent 7 years of your life. So you teach chemistry, and then in your background on your Zoom call, you have Cal State East Bay and Los Medanos. College. So explain kind of the connection of all that.
Sure. So Los Medanos College is the community college where I've been teaching chemistry for the past 6 or 7 years. So I teach one class each semester. And so I work at Los Medanos part-time. I teach one class each semester, and that's been going on for the last 6 or 7 years. And then for the past couple of years, I've been working with Cal State East Bay, and I've been recruiting for the teaching credential program. So people, if you don't know, if they want to teach in a California public school or across the country, if they want to teach in a public school, they have to get a teaching credential. And so Cal State East Bay offers a 1-year program to get a teaching credential, and I help people find out the information that they need to apply to and enroll in our program if that's what they want to do.
Nice.
Is that
we need more teachers?
We definitely do.
Is getting
go ahead.
No, I was kind of going to ask slightly a stupid question. Go ahead, finish your.
No, I was going to say,
teachers.
now to the point that we were making earlier about hanging out at the bar and networking, because it is important to network and to, to get to know people and to socialize a bit, right?
Yeah.
The Cal State East Bay position actually came from a counselor that I knew at Los Medanos. Oh. And so it wasn't a completely random occurrence. I actually wasn't even looking for the position at Cal State East Bay. And one day an email came through my Los Medanos email, and I just asked my wife, like, should I apply for this? Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. Why not? Why don't you just throw your resume in and see what happens?
Yeah.
But yeah, it came from a counselor at Los Medanos who knew one of the professors at Cal State East Bay. And because I'm a chemistry instructor, they were specifically looking for people that had a slant of trying to recruit math and science teachers, especially. Like, there's a huge need for teachers in general, but there's an especially huge need for people who teach math and science.
Yeah. Wait, so how are you only teaching one chemistry class a semester? That doesn't sound like much of a workload, bro.
Yeah, so it's like it's supposed to be. So in a normal situation, what's that?
We need more teachers, not more slackers.
Yeah. We're strategic about these things, right?
Yeah.
But so for the past couple of years, because of COVID, my class has been online, and so that's why the other Cat in the Hat, Dr. Seuss thing is on my Zoom background as well.
Yeah.
But when we were on campus, I would be on campus about 8 hours a week.
Uh-huh.
And then, so other than what I'm doing on campus in the classroom, I'm also doing grading and, preparing assignments and tests and stuff like that. So it averages out, let's say, to 15 hours a week. And again, the job is part-time. I'm what's called an adjunct faculty member. So I'm not full-time, and I'm not tenure track. I'm a part-time employee, and my employment is basically from semester to semester. So it's not guaranteed that I have a class to teach every semester.
Okay. Yeah.
And I don't get benefits either. So I get paid, but I don't get like health benefits and other stuff.
Tell me the story of that at that 7 years ago when you decided to change from sales rep, big pharma, to teaching. What was the catalyst? What was going through your mind?
Yeah. So part
I really
of it,
miss chemistry equations. I miss doing chalkboard stuff.
I did actually like chemistry quite a bit in high school, and as an undergrad.
Yeah.
I didn't necessarily think that it would become my career, but a couple of the reasons that I decided to leave the corporate world and pharmaceuticals in general is a couple of the things that we've kind of talked about. Number one, there is a lot more government pressure on the pharmaceutical industry than there has been in the past. And so even before I started in the pharmaceutical industry, this was way back in the day when reps would take like doctors to the golf course and like,
strip clubs,
gas and goes. I don't know if you've heard of gas and goes, but basically they would station themselves at a gas station. And because the doctors are so busy, they'd be there pumping gas for the doctors while they're doing their product promotion.
Wow.
And so that was a thing before I started.
Yeah.
But so there's a lot more government pressure, and there's also a lot more along that lines. There's a lot more compliance stuff. So it seemed like every other week or every month, I'm like having to do another compliance module, and it eventually started to wear on me, and it got kind of old. So that's why I decided to leave the pharmaceutical industry. And then speaking to what you were asking about, why did I decide to go a kind of a different route than the corporate route? To be kind of honest with you, when I got my last corporate job, I got laid off from, so I was invited to leave. But when I was driving home and talking to my wife, we're like, maybe I should try something different. Kind of burnt out right now, and maybe there's something else other than working like a corporate W-2 job.
Yeah,
and so
crashing all these Audis.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so I didn't necessarily have a plan when I got laid off from my last corporate job. And for a while I was kind of doing nothing. And this kind of speaks to the benefit of having a supportive family and supportive partner. At that time, my wife supported what I was doing. And my path actually, before I got into academics, took a little bit of a different turn that didn't end up really going too far, but I was making some food products that didn't end up doing anything, but that was what I ended up doing right after leaving corporate.
Like you invented your own space jerky or something?
No, it actually was it was kind of like a Cliff Bar, like a power bar. So at the time, I remember this pretty clearly too. I was actually at home and I was doing something on the computer and I was watching TV, and they were making like peanut butter squares, peanut butter bars on TV.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, what about for people that have peanut allergies or people that have like,
don't eat that.
Yeah, people that have other stuff. So I was like, why don't I make this like bar that tastes good, but it also is nut free and dairy free and gluten free, because those were all the big buzz things back in that day. And I have no background in food manufacturing or food production.
Yeah, food
science. I have very little.
food
I have very
science,
little interest in it except for eating.
Yeah.
But I ended up doing that for almost a year, and I rented out space in a commercial kitchen. I was selling these bars at the local farmers market. I didn't make it as far as getting into like grocery stores and stuff like that, but
yeah,
I was selling this stuff at farmers markets. And
wait, what was your bar? What was your bar made out of? Because there was no peanuts, no wheat.
Sunflower seeds, oats, honey, flaxseed meal. What else was in there?
Sounds
raisins.
Tasty so far.
Chocolate. Yeah, I actually got good feedback that it was tasty, and that was part of the thing, right? To make it tasty. But just the similar to my story about the scientist route and the postdoc thing, if you're selling like one bar, let's say you make like $1 or something like that, right?
Yeah.
You need to do volume to be able to make money doing food, like food manufacturing and food distribution.
Yeah.
And so again, I have no background in this and very little interest in this. And I'm selling my onesie, twosie units at the farmer's market. And this is not really a viable thing.
No, you would just have to sell 70,000 bars a year to replace a salary.
Yeah, exactly. And at the time, my younger daughter was not in school yet. So I was bringing her to the farmer's market and trying to get her to help me sell.
Yeah.
And every once in a while, my dad
should have gave her a Girl Scout uniform. That would have been a knockout.
Yeah, well, that's a whole nother story. That's a very good business model.
What was your food bar called?
Go bar.
Go
bar.
Yeah,
I think if you had gone go, it would have done better.
Yeah,
too many
go dancers.
That may have other. If I was selling in Las Vegas, maybe.
Okay.
When you switched from the big pharma sales to being a chemistry teacher, was there, because you saying you're burnt out on the big pharma sales, was there a moment or some thoughts where being a chemistry teacher is something that you were passionate about, or was it just getting food on the table type of thing, or what was going through your mind?
No, so I was fortunate that, talking about my career in big pharma, it was well compensated. I did very well. But at the same time, it was very demanding. So I had a couple of young daughters at the time. I would leave sometimes before anybody wakes up. Sometimes I'd come back after everybody goes to sleep. And there was one time in particular that I remember that I came home, and this was when we were dealing with a pretty kind of a bad HR situation. And I was just so exhausted that I got home and I laid down on the floor and I just fell asleep. And so, the job is great and it can have its great moments, but like a lot of other things, when you're well compensated, it's not always rosy.
Yeah.
And so that was part of the thing that kind of took me to where I ended up going. And to answer your question that you asked me originally, I've always had an interest in teaching. And so as an undergrad, when I was going to Berkeley, I was a TA for the chemistry lab. So I was teaching at that time. And part of it was because I like teaching, and part of it was because they pay pretty well too, especially as a college student. And then when I was doing my MBA, I also was TAing in my second year. And so again, speaking to what we were talking about before, when you're getting a master's degree, usually that's not covered by stipends, and people generate loans and debt and stuff. When I was a TA my second year getting my MBA, that helped out a lot. And I enjoyed teaching anyway. So that was a good thing for me. So when I got laid off from my last corporate job, I wasn't really necessarily looking to get into teaching. When I was growing up, my mom was in the academic field, not as a teacher, but as an administrator. And so she would always be like, oh yeah, it's really good to teach at a community college. It's great benefits and all this other stuff. And so when I came back out of my corporate career and I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, I didn't necessarily know what I wanted to do. And while I was watching TV, like with the peanut butter squares and eventually making the Go 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 bar, I also threw my resume into the local community colleges. And the way that that works is that when you're applying to become a part-time instructor, you just throw your resume into a pool. And when they need you, then they'll call you. And so I threw my resume into the pool, like, you know, within a few months after I got laid off. And I actually forgot about it. And about a year later, the department chair called me and he's like, hey, are you still interested in teaching? I'm like, yeah, sure. So this was like Martin Luther King Day. I think it was the holiday in January. And it was a Monday. He's like, hey, can you come down on Wednesday and interview with me and another faculty colleague? I'm like, yeah, sure. So I go down there on a Wednesday and I interview with them. And it went pretty well because before I left, they're like, you're hired. We'd like to have you start.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh yeah, that's great. They're like, classes start on Friday, like in 2 days. Like, yeah, not really. I don't have a lesson plan or whatever. And the department chair, he had taught the same class before, so he's like, you can use my syllabus and my course layout as an exam, as a you know, just basically follow it.
Yeah.
And that's actually what I told my students my first semester teaching on the first day of class is like, I just got hired 2 days ago. Yeah. So I'm going to figure it out with you. But just realize that I just got hired 2 days ago and, you know, I'm going to be learning as much with you as I am teaching you about this chemistry stuff.
Nice.
So that's how I ended up getting into teaching at the community college. It was just kind of by chance. And sometimes people ask me like, oh yeah, that seems really cool that you teach at the community college. How do I get into that? And I'll tell them the same story, but there's no recipe or there's no, you know, do this, this, and this, and you'll get a position. Sometimes it's just about being in the right place at the right time in life and taking these chances like we've been talking about and trying stuff out, and some stuff sticks and some stuff doesn't.
Wait, so can I be a community college teacher with my accounting degree?
So the minimum requirement to teach at a community college is a master's degree in whatever subject you want to teach in.
Okay.
Did I heard that COVID changed that a lot? Is that true from your experience? Meaning, who told me? Well, I think it was Scott, right? Scott.
I know Las Vegas is super desperate for any teacher on any level.
Oh, it's probably a lot.
Yeah, like
Las Vegas.
Like you can go teach high school if you're just breathing right now.
So that is partly true. Not that, you know, not that they're trying to just hire warm bodies, but speaking to what I do with Cal State East Bay and putting people into the public school system as teachers here in California. So it is true that there definitely is a huge need for teachers. And a lot of times they'll hire teachers before they even get their credential. There's a way to do that. We don't encourage doing that, but it's called like an emergency credential or like a short-term type of a situation.
Yeah.
But at the same time, those people don't necessarily have the training or the background to do it well. But to the point that you're making, sometimes they just need somebody to fill that position. And is it the best thing for the kids, the students? Maybe, maybe not. But the alternative is we have principals and we have administrators and we have other teachers doing like extra load to try to cover these vacancies.
What are some challenges you see as a teacher? Let me answer that question for myself as a software engineer, and then maybe it gives you some ideas. A lot of people like may ask me, well, what's it take to be a software engineer? What makes a good software engineer? And I think my biggest answer is actually patience, and motivation. Because in coding, you might come across a problem like I'm gonna import an Excel sheet through this C# code and put it into the database, and you get stuck on importing this Excel sheet. You haven't even got to the database yet, but it's like sometimes I've been in problems with coding where it's like 2, 3, I think probably up to a week long on one fucking problem where I'm pounding my head on the screen like I've coded it this way, I've imported this way, I formatted it to a different thing, another file type, and imported, and every time it freaking fails. I think in my opinion, I think that's what makes I want to say that's what makes me a good programmer, is that perseverance, that I won't stop until it's finished. That's something I think a lot of coders I think that's what a good software engineer needs. So as for a teacher, like what are good attributes or something that you need to be a good teacher?
You can't be handsy.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's similar.
You can't be touchy handsy. You got to be very, can't be touching people.
Yeah. Wear gloves.
Wear gloves as you're touching a college girl.
This is the blue glove episode. It will be affectionately known as. But yeah, I think to the point that you're making, to be a good teacher, whether it's in a K through 12 level or whether it's at the community college level, there's certain things that apply to all of it. So part of it is, number one, you need to know what you're talking about, right? So if you're teaching chemistry, you kind of need to know chemistry. If you're teaching math, you kind of need to know math. So you need to know what's called your subject matter. With that being said, there's also, to the point that you're making, there's also people development part of this. And a lot of these students are young kids developing people. At the community college, I'll sometimes have people that are coming back for second career or career change. So I do have adults in my class as well. But patience also is definitely something that is important while you're a teacher, because not everybody learns the same way and not everybody learns at the same speed. And so that's an important attribute to have. At the same time, you need to be able to identify with and connect with people, because at the end of the day, you're teaching people, you're interacting with people. And one of the things that I like to believe, at least when I teach my class, is I teach a general intro chemistry class. So people don't need to have a background in chemistry when they take my class. But what I like to believe in the people that take my class, as well as the students in general that go to Los Medanos, because in a large part, the community around Los Medanos is a somewhat underserved population. I like to think that as a teacher, I also inspire hope and I inspire belief in the students in themselves. Because a lot of these students, like, you know, maybe they haven't had a positive influence in their life growing up, or a lot of them are first person in the family going to college.
Yeah.
And so when they go home, like, they don't have anybody to ask, like, what should I do? What's the next step, you know, in my path as I go to community college and potentially transfer to a 4-year college and all this other stuff. So just to be able to, again, back to what we we're talking about as a pharmaceutical sales rep, if you can flex and you can be versatile with different types of people that learn differently and have different types of personalities, sometimes that's easier said than done. But what I get gratification out of is when you work with somebody, and especially if that person initially is having challenges and they're just super frustrated and like they're at the point where they want to quit, but you help them through that, and you can, you know, see that light bulb turn on, or you can see them make that turn, or they tell you sometimes like they feel like this is the first time they've been able to do this or believe in themselves. I get like a tingle in my body. You know, different people have different sensations, but I get like a tingle in my body
like Spidey sense.
Yeah, like, maybe. I haven't had a chance to be Spider-Man, so I don't know for sure, but it's a reaction that my body has that I can feel, that like I feel like I'm making a difference.
Yeah.
And maybe that's one student at a time. Maybe in the time that I've been doing this for 6 or 7 years at Los Medanos, and you know, now that I work at East Bay, it's a handful of students. But the other thing that I like to believe, especially now with the stuff I'm doing at East Bay, is I'm helping people become teachers, and hopefully good teachers. And now they're influencing the generations behind us, because, you know, Lord knows we have a lot of problems going on in this country and the world.
Dude,
but if
Jason,
we can
I got it. You just got to teach chemistry on TikTok.
So I know what TikTok is, but like Breaking Bad back in the day, I haven't really been on TikTok. There is a website though that this is a funny story. So again, when I was first starting teaching, there's this website called Rate My Professors.
Yeah.
You know about it?
Mm-hmm. I've heard of it. I never used it myself.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm too old. Yeah.
So there's this website called Rate My Professors, and apparently the different universities and the different professors, you can put in your ratings for them, and you can look it up and see what the rating is. So you can
like
always
a Yelp
go on there
for college teachers. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but when I was first starting out, this was like year 2 or year 3. They had at that time a hot chili pepper thing.
Oh,
I don't know if you remember this, or apparently, and they've taken it down now for whatever reason, but I think apparently it had to do something with the appearance or the attractiveness or whatever of the instructor.
Jason had max chili peppers.
So yeah, so you can go now and you can look up my rating because that's still there, but the chili pepper's gone. But one of my students told me, because I asked him at the beginning of the semester, I'm like, what do you know about me? Like, you have a hot chili pepper on your Rate My Professor profile.
That's awesome.
That's a different kind of chemistry there.
Yeah, that's the chemistry with blue gloves on.
So did you happen to get a lot of female students then, like signing up for your classes? If that, like, wait, is it? So if you got the chili pepper, that means, are they saying that you're
it's a hottie McHotterson?
Yeah. So did you get,
this is I don't swing that way, but we're in the modern world now. It doesn't necessarily have to be from a female.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, you sexist, chauvinist bastard.
Yeah, you might want to flag that one and edit that one out.
No, I'm leaving it in.
It's totally legal to be gay now.
No, I have a pretty good mixture of students in my class. Again, because my class is not necessarily for science track people. If you want to stereotype, I mean, you can stereotype that a lot of your scientists and your engineers and your technical people tend to be more male than female. But in my class, I have a pretty even split.
Oh, yeah. So all the super nerds did AP chemistry back in high school. They're not going to be going to community college
to
learn chemistry, right?
Gotcha. Okay.
I don't know. More and more people these days go to community college, though. There's a nice thing in our community college district that if you haven't been to community college before, then it's free for you. In our district.
First class free?
No, like I think the whole year or the whole 2 years.
Oh, yeah. Oh, wait, could I move there then and then go to community college for free?
You can enroll in my class too, and we'll see how you like it.
I heard the teacher's hot. Oh, man. Dude, I have a food question. I don't want to forget it. Should I go back to the food or do you want to keep on the teacher stuff?
Go for it.
I hate to jump around like this, but I was dying to ask you this food science question because you're a chemistry teacher. You dabbled in manufacturing food. I want a pill that I can pop and it will make me not hungry. I want it to be like a sponge, like those dinosaur-shaped sponges that expand. I just want to eat one of those and then it fills up my stomach so I don't feel hungry. And then I just poop it out. So you seem like the perfect guy because you have experience in every part of this equation of I need an inert substance that will fill up my stomach and not cause any trouble digestively.
And your goal is you don't want to eat and get more calories. So this inert thing should not make you fat, and it should suppress hopefully any urges to eat more. Hopefully.
Yeah, my stomach's full. I'm not going to go looking for a cheeseburger, right?
But just to.
Yeah, and you and everybody else in society doesn't want to pay a lot for this, right?
Yeah, I want it cheap and it tastes like a chicken parmesan.
Yeah. So no, I don't have anything like that. And kind of what we were talking about earlier, like if you were to try to take that on and develop something like that, I think the research cycle is at least like 10 to 15 years.
Oh,
so I have other things that I'd like to do in the next 10 to 15 years.
I'm going to be super fat by that point.
Yeah, there's stuff out there. It doesn't necessarily taste like a cheeseburger, but there are pharmaceutical options out there that will try to help with weight loss or with like, with making people not hungry.
Yeah.
And then there's also surgical procedures like lap band and gastric bypass, if you've heard of those.
Yeah. No, but what if I just eat those dinosaur-shaped sponges then? Would those do the same thing? Because they're made for 3-year-olds, right? They're surely edible.
Oh, I don't.
You know what I'm talking about? You put in the bathtub.
This is a real thing?
Yeah, it's like a bathtub toy. It's in a pill, and it dissolves when you get in the bathtub, and then a sponge.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Am I crazy, or is that a real? It's a
toy, right? It's not ingestible.
Well, it's made for toddlers, so clearly it is ingestible. It's not made out of cyanide, right? It's in a pill, so it has to be ingestible by the choking hazards and the whole like kids eating. Kids want to eat shit, right? So if you give a bathtub sponge toy to a kid that's in the shape of a pill, clearly you got to assume the kids are going to be eating this thing.
I think you need a guest that's more innovative than me to do that.
What if I microdose X-Lax? Will that keep my body from absorbing nutrients if I'm just If I'm moving down the Bristol scale to push food through faster, then I won't be able to absorb as much of it.
Yeah. The other thing is we don't want you to get dehydrated and fall over and like knock your head too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I bet you. I'm just random thoughts. I would imagine if you develop that pill, I would imagine another side effect is because then your body is going to want nutrients for energy, and then from my understanding, correct me if you guys know the answer. I believe when your body burns fat, it's not as it doesn't give you the same type of energy that your body, when you eat like a burger, oddly, you don't feel this. You're not going to feel energetic from your body burning fat.
Yeah.
So like, meaning if you ate a salad and a decent amount of meat, you could go run a marathon. Well, if you're training for it, you could run a marathon fine. And then if you start taking that pill and your body, you don't eat that salad and that meat, it's trying to burn the fat. You're not going to run that marathon as well at all.
Yeah,
from my understanding.
Unfortunately, I'm not running marathons anyway.
But I'm just saying, I'm just saying energy levels in general.
There's other solutions too. I can't go into this in great detail, but back in my pharmaceutical sales days, we had clinics that would do vitamin B shots and phentermine type of stuff.
And what does that do?
Gives you energy.
Oh,
and increases your metabolism.
Oh, so I need vitamin B in the dinosaur sponge.
Yes.
Yeah, the only dinosaur stuff that we do these days is I don't know if you all have it in your area, but the Costco dinosaur chicken nuggets.
Yeah,
that's a staple for my kids.
Wait, do you have Canes out there? The Raisin Canes drive-through. They only serve.
I don't think we have them out here, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, they only serve chicken tenders or chicken strips. They only serve chicken strips. That's it. You can get it like on a bun, like pretend it's a sandwich, but it's still chicken strips. So
we have In-N-Out. That's probably the closest thing that has a simple menu.
Yeah, but what I'm thinking is, I bet Raisin Cane's out here is super popular. Like the drive-thru is always full, and I'm thinking it's a whole generation of kids that grew up on like I will only eat chicken nuggets. Is what I'm guessing is happening there. You have a generation of spoiled kids that refuse to eat vegetables, and now they're adults, and nobody can stop them from eating chicken nuggets for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
And you can put that in your pill too at the same time. You might as well make it a multi-pill.
God damn it. We got all the solutions right here.
Yeah, if everything was that easy where you could just pop a pill and solve all the problems.
Yeah. I mean, it seems easily doable. I'm going to go buy some of these dinosaur pills and see if the Brontosaurus will stop me from overeating.
Do you have PPO insurance?
No,
I may need to use
I got terrible insurance. I got $300 a month public state marketplace because I don't have like a clock-in job. I'm a realtor, so I pay myself. I just make money, and then I got to come up with some other kind of insurance. I don't have great insurance. Yeah.
Jumping to the to teacher salaries and stuff. So I've heard quite a few online documentaries, and people say that teacher salaries are just not livable per se, or they're not great. What would your thoughts be on that topic?
There's no profit motive in becoming a teacher.
That's one way to put it.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely something that's out there. And that's one of the things that, as I work with Cal State East Bay and trying to help recruit some of these public school teachers, K through 12, kind of a thing that we try to clarify out there, because a lot of people, when they hear about, oh, I want to be a teacher, but I don't want to be like poverty level, right?
Yeah.
Or, they're growing up and, they express that they are interested in becoming a teacher, but they're discouraged by their family because they don't think they'll be able to make it. And, we see a lot in the headlines out there that teachers are certainly one of our most valued professions, and they're underpaid and all this other stuff. And that's probably true. But at the same time, if you actually take the time to look into it, a starting teacher salary is not poverty level. So we were talking a little bit about straight out of college salaries earlier.
Yeah.
And if you actually look, one of our local school districts here that we partner quite a bit with, a starting salary for a teacher that comes out of our credential program can make like about $55,000 a year straight out of our credential program. And they may be recently out of undergrad. And on top of that, an academic school year is 9 or 10 months, right? It's from August or September to call it May or June. So the other thing that sometimes people lose sight of is that if you want to work and make more money in the summer, you can do that, or you can go on a vacation and not work, or you can do other things, whatever you want to do. And so your $55,000 a year salary coming very recently out of college, if you normalize that to like 12 months, that's actually quite respectable.
Is that for like a third grade teacher?
So most in our districts, at least locally here, all teachers get paid the same, whether they're elementary school or junior high or high school.
Yeah.
It's based on how much previous teaching experience you have, or how many years you've been teaching, as well as how many graduate course credits you have. So that's how teachers get compensated.
Gotcha.
So it can be done, right? It's not easy, just like anything else, but it can be done. And on top of that, especially when you're a starting teacher, like it's going to be a lot of work because you need to set your lesson plan and you need to kind of, get everything going. But once you've been teaching for a while, kind of like what I do at Los Medanos, chemistry doesn't change in like 5 years. And so my base lesson plan and my base curriculum stays pretty consistent from semester to semester, and I just innovate a little bit and tweak here or there each semester. I would imagine, I haven't been a kindergarten through high school teacher, but I would imagine that it's somewhat similar. Like, when the next year comes around, you don't have to reinvent the entire thing. So you can start to do some other things if you want, as you start to, get more experience under your belt teaching whatever subject you teach.
So you can make $55,000 a year and have the summer off. Does that sound pretty good?
Yeah. I mean, let's call it you're in your, early 20s, mid 20s, making 55 a year plus summer, do whatever you want.
Yeah. Not a bad gig.
So if someone teach K through 12, would it be a believable progression then, or would it be a upgrade to then work at like Cal State East Bay or Los Medanos? Would the salary go up, or is it more challenging, or is it possible?
Oh, what's the career path?
Is it a good career path too?
To move into like a 4-year college or a community college setting?
Yeah.
Or do people just stay 7th grade teachers for like 30 years?
Yeah, so I'll answer that 2 ways.
Yeah.
My brother-in-law is a teacher actually, and he started teaching right out of college. So he's been a teacher for quite a while, and he's around my age, so he's not super old, but I think he's getting ready to retire somewhat soon. People will stay in the public school system. Let's just call it teaching or doing other things, because you can also, if you don't want to continue teaching forever, you can also do other things like you can be a counselor or like a principal or an administrator or something like that. You don't always have to stay in the classroom, but a couple of things that keep people in that line of work is, like we were talking about, like the school year. I think that's a nice thing that potentially could be a good thing. But there's also great benefits that come along with being a teacher as well. Like we hear about pensions going away, but here in California, we have what's called CalSTRS. CalSTRS is a pension program for teachers. And so as you amass more years, like my brother-in-law, like you can start to amass a pretty good retirement system, like a pension, and you might want to stay in that. I do have colleagues who used to teach in the public schools who are now at East Bay or other places. And again, just anecdotally, like they say, I make less at the university, or I don't know why they exactly made the decision to switch, but it's not necessarily true that you make more when you go to work at a 4-year university.
Interesting.
I would much rather be at a community college than with high schoolers or something, because I feel
to each their own. So this is kind of what happened to me when I first got laid off from my corporate job. I actually did get my substitute teaching authorization, let's call it.
Yeah.
And I did, before I started teaching at Los Medanos at the community college, I substitute taught like 4 different assignments.
Yeah.
One of them was, the very first one was PE. So I was subbing for a PE teacher.
Yeah.
And this was at an elementary school, and it was raining that day.
Yeah.
And so if you all remember PE, like on a rainy day, that kind of is a bummer.
It's heads up, 7 up.
So What's that?
It's heads up, 7-Up is what it is on a rainy day.
Yeah, that, or we were playing, I think, Galaxy Tag or something like that, kind of like dodgeball in the multi-purpose room in the gym.
Yeah.
And so I was doing that with them in there, and it was okay, it was cool, right? And but after the first 2 or 3 classes, it was almost lunchtime, and since it was raining, they needed to eat lunch in the gym, in the MPR. And so they're like, "Yeah, you can't be in here anymore." Like, okay, well, where do you want me to go? They're like, "Go to the library." Like, really? The library?
Yeah.
So I took them to the library, and that was an adventure. Because, you know, they're supposed to be in PE doing active things and like having fun. And we're here in the library, and I'm trying to keep them somewhat quiet, and, you know, the librarian's in there as well. And at the end of the session, nobody got hurt and nothing got damaged. So I called it a good day, but there was a lot of shushing, and like, we have to be quiet during that PE in the library.
It's the worst PE ever.
Yeah. So I did that. I subbed for PE. I subbed for kindergarten one time. I subbed for like a 3rd grade or 4th grade class. And then I did like a science sub. And to what you were talking about earlier, I love kids. I have kids of my own, but I don't think I can teach young kids like every day on a regular basis. And so that's part of the reason that I teach at the community college, like young adults and adults.
Yeah, kids have unlimited energy.
What's if I were to ask you, what's your outlook, or what's your thoughts on the outlook of America through the perspectives of a teacher that teaches young adults?
We're fucked.
Yeah. What's your thoughts? And feel free, if you want me to flag it, or if you don't want to answer it, that's fine too.
He's going to be positive.
Yeah. I mean,
it's fine. Everything's fine.
That's a tough one.
I wonder, we discuss often about how you got these politicians that are like 70 plus years old.
Yeah.
From the figures that I just saw today on some posts, I don't know if it's true, that baby boomers hold 50% of all the money in America.
Yeah.
So
money grabbers.
So you're talking about a very lopsided society that we have. So I almost want to say, when you talk to a young person, it's almost I want to say most of the time I feel actually more optimistic than pessimistic. It's when I think about the old government and all these rich people messing up our country, I feel more pessimistic over there. But
yeah. So we are going to have a wealth transfer as the baby boomers die off. They typically inherit whatever's left to their millennial kids. But I think what's bad about, you're transferring generations, it's going to be very uneven. And then it's also going to be wealth that wasn't earned.
Yeah.
So a person's very different if they earn their wealth in some way versus I waited till my parents died and then I got this money. So it's an odd world we're heading into.
Yeah.
I think there's also, and I don't have a super clear answer for you all, but I think there's also, there's probably also going to be a shift in the way that younger people think and operate and act than us middle-aged people or the older people. Use case in point, like I do a little bit of real estate stuff, and you hear about like the millennials, like they aren't buying houses for a while at least.
Yeah.
And nowadays, like people, like COVID kind of threw everything for a loop, and everybody's working from home and working remotely. And now they're talking about having people come back to the office, and people don't want to come back to the office. And I saw a headline today that said people are fine with taking less compensation if they don't have to go back to the office.
Yes.
And so whether that's, whether that's the wave of the future, or whether this gig economy where people are not taking traditional jobs, whatever the case may be, the world continues to change, and it's hard to say where we're headed, but like we were saying, we have our fair share of challenges these days. But yeah, it's just, I guess one thing that I'll just kind of say from my experience with my classes and my community college students is, I don't know if it's just my students or if it's like, young adults in general, but they communicate very differently. Like I force them, I make them do an assignment where they have to do a presentation.
Yeah.
And the communication skills and I don't mean to say social skills, but the socialization and the communication is just very different. Like people would prefer to text or TikTok or Instagram or whatever the case may be, than to have a conversation like this, right? When's the last time a young person, and my kids aren't teens yet, but when's the last time they had a phone conversation that was more than 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes? Right. You know, in this day and age where we all look for instant gratification of everything right away, and like, you know, if it takes 5 minutes, that's too long.
Yeah.
You know, it's different than what we probably grew up doing.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I think, I don't know, how a month or two ago, there was a point, me and Emmett were, I think we're
texting each other.
I was either looking
just for all emojis.
No, I forget what it was. I was looking for some information from a restaurant. I don't think it was a restaurant, because I ended up wanting to text them, and then you're like, "Why don't you just call?" And then I told
in my old man voice.
And I guess to me, it was a point of, I don't know, inflection or whatever. Like, I think texting in some situations is super faster, in my opinion. Certain information I'd rather just get through text. I understand, yes, obviously we're doing a 3-hour podcast. I love talking to people, but there are times where I'd rather just get the quick information. And I think when you said that to me, why don't you just call? And I'm like, oh yeah, that one. I totally forgot. I don't know. I
forgot how to call people.
No. I got so automated to texting that's usually faster, but in this one situation, it was faster to call, but I forgot that I should just call.
Yeah.
So it was.
I think it has to do with our world where, so young kids especially have a lot of practice on their phones, but they don't have a lot of practice in this interpersonal arena face to face. They're missing that practice in that world. So it gets weird, right? They don't have the skills. They have skills in other places, right? They can make 5 videos a day and dance and do all these other things that don't matter to us, but that's their world that they're spending time in.
And I think to the point you all are making in this, let's call it digital communication world, where it's like either texting or emailing or Discord or whatever the case may be. Mm-hmm. Hopefully this doesn't happen to you all, but intent of the message sometimes gets misconstrued when you're doing stuff by just words or texting versus, hey, you know, we had a misunderstanding. Why don't I just call you and let's talk it out? Versus, hey, you texted me this and I'm super offended. Well, I didn't mean anything by it. So I've had that happen to myself as well as, you know, my kids maybe kind of a little bit, but yeah. I think a lot of things get kind of lost when we lose that direct vocal communication. And, you know, like you're saying, Emmett, especially in the, you know, world where you deal with clients, mm-hmm. A lot of clients, they're all super busy, right?
Yeah.
But when you can sit down with them and have a cup of coffee or shake their hand in person,
yeah,
it accelerates the relationship that much faster mm-hmm. than sending, you know, a week's worth of texts or whatever.
I want to play devil's advocate on that topic that you're bringing up. I feel like as human beings, we should just we should know that we should treat everyone equally, regardless of phone call, handshake, text, words, and tones to some degree. Meaning, what I mean by that is,
what do you mean?
If I'm texting a friend versus calling them or shaking, I think that shaking the hand is the better one. If I'm able to persuade someone because I shook their hand, I view that as weak. This is a far-fetched way the way I'm describing it sounds odd, but that is weakness that they can't understand the situation. If it would have changed and I just text you that information to get that, whether it's a contract or whatever done, instead of shaking their hand to get the okay on the contract, it should have been all fine through email or text.
But now I can't look in your eyes and see, and I can't judge whether you're trustworthy or not.
That's
you're
stupid.
Not in the room.
The other person on the other side, I'm
devil's advocating your devil's advocates.
They should be smart enough to know to ask the questions that give them the valid answers. So
Liam is also, can I qualify this and jump in?
Yeah.
Liam is also speaking from a software engineer's perspective. That I think that in all of the situations that I'm in, verbal communication is super important. But I think to the point that we're kind of starting to get at, there's as much nonverbal communication as there is when you can see each other or be in the same space as each other as there is with verbal or written communication.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally agreed. I I think if people weren't two-faced as much as I see that they are, email and text would be.
Oh, I'd much rather lie to you than a text.
No, I'm saying if people were just good people all around at every point of their life, a simple email or text would suffice. But we have to read people's personalities and see if they say something, if they say a certain sentence in front of me, and then you could tell that they're lying. Then that's one factor.
So as a realtor, you do have to. I've dealt with so many clients that it depends on where that client is on their communication comfort, right? So you got to kind of meet the client at what they're comfortable with, and it's not a game, but it's a challenge to when you meet somebody or when you first connect with somebody. What are they comfortable with? Some people love text, some people hate text. I just helped an older couple. They're barely older than me. They weren't super old, but they weren't able to get email working in their house because it's always you got to set up the Wi-Fi, you got to call the company, you got to get the router set up, and then you got to get all the addresses to connect to this. And if you're just not a tech person, then it's a fucking challenge. Like I'm lucky to live with a software guy because I basically have Wi-Fi set up no matter what. Because you ain't gonna let it be down for more than 10 minutes. So for as long as we're roommates, I got free Wi-Fi set up. So I could see how for somebody my age or older, like this is a fucking pain in the ass. Like, I don't want to read email at home anyway. Screw this, right? So I had some clients where normally now it's easy to do all these documents by email, but they don't want to read emails on their phone. Like you want me to sign a contract on my phone, right? How crazy is that, right? So we were doing wet signatures. So we'd meet up for every part of the transaction, right? And that's totally different from somebody who's, there's young people that don't have a laptop or physical computer. It's like, why do I need a computer? I could just do everything on my phone. Like literally, I'm happy to read everything in tiny, small print. So it's this, there's definitely an age thing, but it's because our technology and our world is progressing so fast that you're starting to see that separation of comfort levels and modes and ways of thinking and ways of acting.
Yeah. Yep.
I'll throw in my devil's advocate view of this maybe, but like we were saying, if we were all robots or robotic or could just do this without emotion and without feelings or anything like that, we could probably get a lot of things done a lot quicker and more efficiently, but that's not the case. We're people, we have feelings, we have bad days and good days and whatever the case may be. And this was my caution for the future, like you were asking me earlier. If we do too much of this artificial intelligence and robot learning, we may be headed for Terminator, right? I mean, I think we grew up in the days of the Terminator movies.
Yeah, totally.
And maybe that's not something we want.
No, but look at all this time, energy, and food and effort and crying we waste on pets. If we had turned all that to chemistry and engineering, think of how many robots we could have running around right now. Wouldn't that be a better world? Self-driving would be an actuality right now if we weren't sitting around petting our dogs.
And watching 7-second videos.
I have some burning
There's a lot of ambitious projects that are coming out of this session.
I have burning chemistry questions. Is there?
Go ahead.
Yeah, is there? So most people aren't good at chemistry. Most Americans could not pass your chemistry class, period. Period. 95% of Americans would not pass your chemistry class, right? They could sit through it the whole year. 95% of Americans ain't going to make it.
Is that a question or is that a statement?
The question is there one thing that you wish we all knew in the chemistry world? Is there something that everybody's missing that we could know if we were all good at chemistry?
So I'll answer that in a couple of ways.
Yeah.
So I take a little bit of exception with the first statement you made that 95% of people couldn't do chemistry or pass my chemistry class.
Yeah.
As much as I'm hired to and I teach chemistry at Los Medanos, I also try to pepper in like life lessons and try to help them develop as students and adults.
Yeah.
And I believe as much as possible that people can do what they set their minds to. Right. I mean, this is the whole idea, if you've heard of it, of the growth mindset versus fixed mindset idea.
Yeah.
Where just because you have a natural disposition to do something or not do something doesn't mean you can't do something. Maybe you can't do it yet, but if you stick with it and if you practice and if you go through the bad times, you can do it. So
I agree, it's possible for most people. I just know Americans ain't going to put any effort into it because they already hate math, and they looked at their math homework and they decided, fuck this, I would rather fail. I will go do something else instead of put in the effort, the determination, the desire. Yeah, if somebody's got the motivation, I think it's possible for most people to be really academically astute and achieve amazing things. But most people...
So that's different.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a mindset thing. So I tell my students the first week of class, I tell them all, it's like, you can all do well in this class, but it's going to take some work. I'm never going to say chemistry is easy, but I will say it's doable, especially if you keep up with it and you do the work and you ask questions when you need help.
So in community college, they want to be there in some way, shape, or form. They either want to get their nursing degree, or their parents kind of pressure them into it, or they want to keep learning. Community college is just sorting out, like, everybody in high school that didn't go to community college, that's the 95% of people that ain't ever going to learn anything about chemistry, was where I was going with that. That we're missing this, we could all have a basic knowledge in chemistry, but we're missing it from our country. It does not exist. All the truck drivers I know don't give a shit about chemistry. All the people I've ever worked with in bars, bartending, cocktail waitressing, casinos, thousands of people, they have virtually zero understanding of chemistry, right? I'm a realtor. I meet with people in all walks of life, right? So I could count up dozens and dozens and dozens of clients, and I could tell you, yep, most of them ain't going to pass the chemistry test, right?
So I'll answer the second part of your question.
Yeah.
Like, what would I want people to know about chemistry or about my class?
Yeah. What nugget are we missing?
So what I would say, to the point that you're making just now, is a lot of the students in my class, and this is part of the issue with the education system in general, not to open up a whole bigger can of worms, but a lot of people in the education system these days are learning and taking tests and studying to get a grade and to pass, to answer a question, to pass a exam, right?
Mm-hmm.
Versus what I try to encourage people in my class to do is learn to think, learn to find solutions, figure out how to study a problem or study a certain concept and apply that to what you are trying to do. So I don't want you to just go looking for the answer. I want you to think about what we learned and figure out, like, how do you approach this problem so that you can find a solution? And that's the case whether you're doing chemistry or software, I would think, or real estate, or trying to figure out how to get your truck from one city to another city if there's like a blockage in the road.
Yeah.
It's just a general life skill set. Chemistry is one application, and most people in the course of their lives probably are going to be just fine if they don't know chemistry, but they need to learn to be able to solve problems and not just look for answers all the time. And if the answer is not easy and takes a little bit of work, to your point, they quit or they don't do it.
Yeah. So work harder.
I want to argue with that point, but I'm trying to. I think,
but you can't because it's true.
Well, so I think the statistic is 30% of Americans have a bachelor's degree. I think
30% of Americans have a bachelor's degree.
So then,
we'll go with that. You can always edit it, right?
Yeah, I think it's somewhere, it might be 20 to 30%, but so your 95% would be wrong already there. But I think your point, I think your idea comes from a good place where you want to say, hey, America, we should step up our game. We have so much food. We're all overweight. We have so many luxurious things, from a big 2,000, 3,000 square foot house to a nice Mercedes. And even if you don't,
I got an 80-inch television.
Even if you have a Kia, you probably have an 80-inch television. Or if you drive I
got an iPhone 17.
Yeah, we have so many luxuries, and when you take it around the world, those luxuries are really massive. Meaning, there's countries where North Korea, Ukraine right now, and whatnot. So,
yeah,
America, we need to step up our game. But I wonder. So if 30% of Americans have a bachelor's degree, I kind of wonder. So does that mean 70% just don't care, or I don't know.
It's not for everybody. I mean, not everybody wants to learn shit, right? I mean, what if I just want to build brick walls? Like, there's a job. You could be a cinder block wall.
Yeah, tradespeople, right? Tradespeople, people that end up starting businesses that don't necessarily go the college route.
Yeah. If you could be a roofer, that'd be a good gig. I mean, you gotta be careful not to fall off a roof, but you could, if you don't mind the hot sun in Vegas, but you could make a lot of money as a roofer, and you learn all about asphalt and mastic and tiles and which tiles to replace and how not to fall off a roof. And you get really good at roofing and make a ton of money, and then you live your life and you drink your beer and you watch the Raiders and eat buffalo wings and you watch a giant TV and drive whatever car you got, right? But there's zero desire to learn any chemistry.
Or I'll also throw in what we were talking about earlier, that with the rate of innovation and the different ways that people can make money these days, the gig economy, the crypto, the, what do they call it? The black web or whatever it is.
Dark web? Wait, you can make money on the dark web?
Yeah. I don't know about that kind of stuff, but not everybody has to follow the same path necessarily.
Yeah.
So I guess that's what I would throw out in, teaching at a community college and recruiting for a four-year university. I mean, that's kind of a ironic thing for me to say, but I don't think everybody has to follow the traditional path.
Yeah, I guess to add to that, it is a weird world we're getting into with having so much production around the world globally with food, everything, cars, luxurious items, where we see things like a YouTube channel where a cook, one of his things is punching the refrigerator when he makes a good dish. The better the dish, the harder he'll punch the refrigerator. So his refrigerator has dents all over it. But in a
like, he's so excited, like that was the best al dente I ever made.
Yeah. And that's his YouTube channel. I think it's called That Guy Can Cook. That's the channel name. But
that guy can punch fridges.
Yeah. So I think we're going into a bizarre world where humans, we have everything we need.
Well, so he's an entertainer, right? Isn't that basically, he's producing entertaining content?
And influencers, right? The social media influencers.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah. So besides, so take a step away or from him, another YouTube channel where I don't know. I'm trying to think of one where there's this guy. I watch Young Bloods. It's an Australian guy that just checks out different beaches by himself. Basically, well, he has some friends, but mainly the channel is 80-90% by himself, I think. So,
and he gives you a tour of the beach or what?
Yeah, he just catches food, cooks it, and then just hangs out on the beach. And so, is that a skill that educates people at all? Is it something that benefits society? I would say it benefits.
It could be if you did chemistry on the beach.
So I don't know. I don't really have a path I'm trying to prove with any of this or anything.
I wanted a chemistry nugget that everybody should know. When a million people watch this podcast, we could be that nugget of education could.
Here's a zinger. I'll give you one zinger.
Okay, yeah. Here's the gold.
So there's one chemical that can exist as a gas and a liquid and a solid all at the same time.
Gas, liquid, and solid simultaneously.
Water.
Hydrogen.
Wow, see, look at that. Liam would pass my class. He's one of the 30%, I guess.
What do you mean simultaneously? Like in the same room?
Like in the same conditions. Like right now, you could have water vapor in the room. Yeah. You could have liquid water in this water bottle I've been drinking, and you could have ice like in the room too.
Right. So we're back to the bar.
Yeah, exactly. And if you have enough drinks, you'll see a lot of other things too.
More exhaling, more exhale vapor.
All right, I'm gonna lead us into the final question section. 5 questions, about 30 minutes. And first question: What great daily habit or habits do you have?
Oh, they have to be productive or not really?
Just has to be great. In your opinion.
Why are we so literal? What's your favorite daily habit?
I mean, I would say just to get yourself into a routine, I think sometimes is one of the things, because a lot of people have trouble getting started or staying on task or whatever. And just, if you can get yourself into a routine, whatever it is, working out or getting, reading, I could do better reading, but, whatever the case may be. And I guess the other thing is this maybe is a little bit kind of a bigger answer to your question, but just to kind of just enjoy every moment of every day that you're doing, because you never know when your time is up, right? Not to get super deep, but like I have a friend who has a friend who just passed away from leukemia, from cancer, and they have like a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old. So this is like a young family.
Yeah.
And you know, my last corporate job, I was flying down to LA every week, and my wife was a single mom for like half the week. And so, you know, right now my kids are 10 and 11, and just being able to enjoy the days with them and enjoy the time while still, with all the stuff we've been talking about, contribute to the household income and being responsible for all my stuff, but just do what you enjoy. If you can find some joy and find some passion that's meaningful to you, you know, life is short. So that's kind of what my routine is these days.
Nice.
I like it. Take a deep breath. Enjoy the moment.
Yeah. I think through these podcasts, it's a little bit of too much of my personality goes into it. When I say too much, as in, like you hear some of the questions earlier, what's the future of America through the views of a teacher? So there's a bit of a dark,
we're doomed.
I feel that we are doomed too much sometimes. And to connect to what you're saying, I sometimes need to tell myself, hey, just enjoy the moment. Like, stop worrying, stop trying to be moral in every action you do, every word you say. Maybe just enjoy the moment more.
Yeah, just be a pickpocket. Just little pieces of joy.
I saw a quote, this might be cool, but I saw a quote the other day that said, the time that you're wasting is not wasted if you enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
Hey, you know what? Everybody out there in America and the whole world, enjoy every moment that you're not wearing surgical gloves. Because if you had to wear these for 8 hours a day, your hands are swamps. Yeah. This is
yeah, we started talking about that like quite a while ago, and
like 2 hours.
now you can
plus
you can personally experience
I have more than
what I was
average hair
experiencing.
on the back of my hand, and it's a hairy swamp.
All right, next question. What do you know or think of cryptocurrency?
It's on the dark web.
So most of my experience and most of my stuff is not in crypto. Most of it's in kind of the real estate space. I have some in like traditional equities like stocks, and I've looked more into crypto recently. What I know is that it's an asset, something that is like electronic currency, something that maybe has some staying power, but there's like so many different types of cryptocurrencies these days that what I've read and what I've heard is that they can't necessarily all continue on into the long term, that maybe you'll end up with a few that have staying power. But what I do know is that about 5 years ago or so, I was actually working on a house, and my contractor was like, oh yeah, I'm in this stuff called Bitcoin. I'm like, oh, I don't know what that is. I don't know anything about it. And he's like, yeah, it's like $500-$600 for a coin. Like, oh, well, that's kind of interesting, but I'm not really into that stuff. Yeah. And my wife has a similar story, because I think she saw Ethereum when it was like $1 or something, or less than $1.
Yeah.
But I mean, what I know is that in general is that, you know, my family, we try to build up assets as part of our wealth. And crypto is one avenue of building assets, along with all the other stuff that we talked about. So I know I need to learn more about it. I think it's probably here to stay, but I don't know enough about it, but I know that I need to know more.
I like everything Jason just said.
We're both Em and I are pro crypto. I'm a software engineer, so my views are sci-fi-ish in crypto, and it's here to stay, in my opinion. It's government can never kill it. They will never kill it. They could only slow it down. It's when, it's not if.
I know I should have bought at least one coin back when my contractor was telling me about it. And I guess the thing maybe sort of related to this is I also kind of see the metaverse is sort of related to this as well. Maybe.
Sure.
But at least it's like an evolving space that that people need to be aware of.
I'll I'll pipe in on Jason. I love everything you said because you kind of identified it as one of this is something I say a lot, but it's one of the 3 appreciating assets that normal people can buy, right? What can we can buy stocks, we can buy real estate, we can buy cryptocurrency. Other than that, what thing can you buy that goes up in value? Hard to put your finger on something, right? So, and then when you're saying I should have bought it back at $1 or whatever, what that tells me is that you're not buying it today. But so if it's an appreciating asset, if we expect it to keep appreciating in the future, it kind of doesn't matter what happened in the past, right? So if you could travel back to 1964 and buy a house, would you do that? Sure.
Right, of course.
But you missed it. So did that stop you from buying a house when you could? Would you buy a house today? Would you buy a house 3 years from now? Would you buy stocks, 2 years from now? So It's weird that with crypto, people have this idea that I missed it. That, there was some point at which it was golden. But that was the case at every point. So if you look at the chart and the graph, if you think it's going to keep going up, then today is as good a day as any to not hear financial advice from not financial advisors on YouTube.
We're not financial advisors. This is for entertainment purposes only. YouTube, you know what to do.
Yeah, I'm not either, but
I
think to the point you're making is fair. Is they talk about like people that build long-term wealth either are just buy and hold, and they just hold it and they really don't look at it, or they dollar cost average and they just consistently buy a little bit at a time, and they're not really worried about whatever the valuation is at the time that they're buying it.
Yeah, it's so crazy. So that's my general thing is grab any appreciating assets you can and then just accumulate them, right? So I want to hoard appreciating assets. And it's so weird. We just bought another condo, and in dollars, I paid more for that condo than I did for my 4-bedroom house. So it's such a weird thing. When you add in time and appreciation, it's like, this is cuckoo. But should I have said, I should have bought in 2014? That was the ultimate prime time to buy a home, was 2014, right? But
they talk about whether it's whatever the asset is, crypto or real estate or stocks or whatever.
Yeah,
they talk about, and I'm guilty of this too, trying to time the market.
Yeah.
And people can sometimes get a little lucky or fortunate or whatever, but if people are really trying to time the market and buy it when it really is at the bottom, and sell it when it really is at the top, again, I'm guilty of this as well, but sometimes you end up not doing it at all because
I waited 7 years for the stock market to correct, and it never did. It never did. I was like, I'll jump in as soon as it corrects. I'm ready to start dollar cost averaging. I just don't want to start at a high. So, I'm going to wait till that recession or that little crash comes, and then I'll just start then and then get the ball rolling, right? And it cost me 7 years of not doing it because it logically should have happened, but then it didn't. So,
we have joke about it, but it's this whole thing about Monday morning quarterbacking or hindsight is 2020, or the other way that I like to say it is, if we really could tell the future, why don't we just buy the right lottery ticket numbers and we'll all be set.
Yeah.
I've been trying to think of a way to word this in like 2 sentences, or one sentence. I haven't yet. I think this right now it would be, can you think of something better to invest in than just do it now? So let me give the long story of why I've been thinking that. So whether it be the condo is more expensive than your house, or if you could have bought Ethereum at sub $1 or Bitcoin at sub 500, whatever, whether it be the house that appreciates or Bitcoin, Ethereum, right now at this given moment, say you have $15,000. Just say you have $15,000 laying around. You want to invest into something. Is there something better to invest in now with that $15,000? Meaning, stop looking at Ethereum at sub penny or sub $1 because you missed out on that.
Yeah.
Don't think about the price of this house to that condo with that $15,000. Right this second, that $15,000 is what you got, and what is the best vehicle to make that go up in value. Yeah. So whether you have to make an educated choice, it's either put that in a down payment on another house, or buy more crypto, or buy stocks. That's your only 3 choices, sort of. Businesses, collectibles, and anyways, those are kind of the other possibilities, but higher risk, I think, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I don't know how to sum that up in like one sentence to somebody.
I think you did pretty good so far. Yeah.
Stop thinking about what it could have been and just do it now and put in that money and pick the best educated investment. Yeah. I feel like I hear it so much. So many people are like, well, Ethereum was 2,400 only probably 8 months ago. And they get in their mind and they're like, yo, I'm not going to buy now. I'm like, it doesn't matter. That $5,000 you have right now, you should make it work for you. So what's the best educated choice? Is it put a down payment on a house, put it in crypto or stocks? So,
yeah. I mean, I can answer it without answering it, like I have been with you all the whole time here.
Yeah.
So for me, with my kind of my investing mindset, if you want to call it that, it kind of is the same way that I teach, in that there's not a right answer for everyone. Because, you know, I have a family and I have a couple of kids who are almost in high school. When I was 20, I was investing in things that I had a lot longer term outlook, where if things go up and down, it's not a huge deal because it can always go back up. So I was maybe investing at that time with more of a appreciation kind of target, versus now, like I am focusing more on cash flow and kind of a passive income stream. And all that being said, I'm still a big fan of diversification. Yeah. Because if you're going to, you guys are in Vegas, so I can make betting analogies.
Yeah.
If you're going to bet on something, you can either put all your money into one thing, or you can kind of put a little bit of your money and spread it out amongst a lot of different things. And if we could tell the future, then yeah, put it all in that one thing that you think is going to explode. But nobody can tell the future unless you're, you know, Marty McFly and Back to the Future. But you know, that's the way that I do it these days. Is I'll put it in a lot of different things that fit my investing criteria right now.
Yeah. Knowing
that maybe 7 or 8 of them might work. One of them maybe is a little bit sideways, and one of them probably is not going to do very well. And you know, it doesn't make it any easier to stomach when it doesn't do well, but it's better than like putting it all into that one thing that either sideways or down, and now I'm like up a creek.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you buying rental properties? Is that one of your?
So I have rental properties out of state. We had rental properties in state here in California, and not to open up that whole can of worms, but with the landlord tenant laws and the way that California is going kind of politically, we basically took everything out of California except for where we live.
Yeah.
So yeah, we have rental properties. We have also we also do investments in other types of real estate as well. Nice. And then I dabble a little bit with stocks and stock option trading a little bit. Yeah. And then we have some other like crypto stuff and precious metals and stuff like that. But I think that was the other piece of what I was going to say is the things that I invest in also these days, like I don't want it to create more work for myself. So back in the day, or even kind of more recently, like when I was doing a little bit of stock option trading, like I was very focused on it, and it would take up a lot of my day, both time and energy and focus.
Yeah.
And, you know, that was kind of stressful at times.
Yeah.
And if there's ways that I can,
that's like gambling.
Maybe I don't make as much necessarily, but like, then I don't have to worry about it. And I can spend the time, like we were talking about earlier, spending time with my kids, or I think I was telling you all, I play pickleball now with the retirees in the daytime, and play basketball and stuff like that. But like I can choose what I want to spend my focus and my energy on.
Yeah. Nice.
All right. Next question. What is the biggest problem for humans, and what do we do to fix it?
Oh, fuck.
The biggest problem for humans?
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, we covered a lot of those. Emmett has solutions for all of those, right?
I've got all the answers. Nobody listens.
I think the biggest problem for humans is that we are oftentimes like trying to take sides and trying to be right, and not working together and trying to, you know, I don't want to say compromise, but like work together for the betterment of the whole.
Cooperate.
And what's that?
Cooperate.
Yeah, cooperate. And I'm one of the least political people that you'll ever meet. But that's one of the reasons that I'm really not into politics, because people take sides, and I know that they believe very strongly in their side, but who's right? You have your opinion, I have my opinion. So unless you're paying my bills, don't tell me what to think.
What would be a systematic solution that you would suggest? If I gave you a magic wand that you could
fix politics,
you could influence government, what would it be?
I mean, I hate to say it because I'm not a huge fan of meetings and committees, but I almost feel like it should somewhat be decentralized and not so aligned up to, like, I guess, with the president and with the House of Representatives and Senate. I mean, there's basically 3 major controlling bodies there, right? Mm-hmm. And I know from what I know that there's committees within these different bodies, but they all bubble up to like the same kind of 3 branches, I think.
All right.
Yeah, lobbying, campaign contributions, and outright corruption.
Yep.
Those are the 3 branches of government.
Next question's a lot easier. What's your favorite food or dish?
I'm good for a good ribeye.
Nice.
So I haven't had one in quite a while, but I'm a fan of Ruth Chris ribeye. Like a lot of butter.
Yeah. It's butter and oil. I think it's
pretty much.
Yeah.
Wait, is that a Republican choice? That's political food. I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding.
Do you enjoy it with wine, or just are you a wine person at all?
I'm a social drinker. I don't typically drink. Like I don't need to break out the bottle of wine, but if somebody breaks out the bottle of wine, or we're getting together with people, like I'm good for having a few drinks.
Yeah, back in, I forget what year it was, probably 2007 was the first time I had a cowboy ribeye at Ruth's Chris. I still remember that. That thing was so delicious.
Changed my life.
So delicious.
Yeah, with the what is it? The sweet potato mash or whatever it is. I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, that's
with the candied yam thing.
That sounds right. Yeah,
it's good stuff.
Yeah. Any
that was before you were pairing wines with fancy meats.
It was around that time. I love the flavor of red wine and steak. Back in the day, my tongue, or it would, the astringent effects of the red wine would make my lips and my tongue pucker up. And when I'd eat the fatty steak, it would like loosen it. And there was just an amazing flavor profile plus a physical change in my mouth, the muscles. And it was just an amazing treat for me.
It's like Spidey sense in your mouth.
Yeah, there's your food expert. Why are you asking me food questions?
No, I don't. I mean, we actually got a sommelier to do this podcast, and he was able to explain what I was feeling from that. Nowadays, the thing that sucks is my taste buds or tongue has changed. I don't get that astringent feeling anymore, so I've lost that awesomeness with red wine and steak.
I've just turned into that old man that puts salt on everything.
I have a quick funny story if I could take a quick minute.
Yeah, totally.
I think I was telling you, my buddy lives out near you in Vegas. He lives in Henderson. And if he ever gets this, watches this, or I'll send him the clip. This was way back in the day before I had wife and kids and real responsibilities.
Yeah.
I used to like to play some cards. So I did pretty well one trip, and I think it was at the Venetian. And so they comped us like a really nice meal at their restaurant upstairs. And so me and my buddy went, and we were both single at the time. And we weren't doing Ruth Chris, let's just say, regularly.
Right.
So we go up there and we're sitting down, and we feel totally out of place. But the first guy that comes by is like the bread server. And we're like, what is this? Like, we don't have people that serve us bread. We don't really know what to make of this. So so we joke about it to this day that it's like, oh yeah, it's like that time we went up to that Venetian restaurant and we had a bread server. Like, we don't usually have somebody that just serves us bread.
He was a bread specialist.
Yeah.
All right. Final question. Name 2 friends or acquaintances that should do this podcast.
Oh, who would be excellent?
So I got my buddy Drew Walgren. He works with an industrial real estate group right now, and he's a good guy. He's got a kind of a youngish family like me. He's actually he lives here in the area close to me, but he is in the process of moving out to Texas with his family. So he's got a lot of interesting things going on with investments, with his decision with he and his family to leave California, which I know is a hot topic as well in the different areas.
Is that a tax move for him?
What's that?
Is that a tax move for him?
I think it's partially, but one of his business partners lives out there, and I think when he visited his business partner, it was a good fit for him. So I think that's why he and his family are moving out there.
Yeah.
Let's see, another one. This is going to be somewhat non-professional, maybe.
That's fine.
This is kind of what I'm. What's that?
Strippers.
Oh yeah, not quite that crazy.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, there's this other guy, Kirby Wong, who is sort of one of the resident pickleball guys. This is what I do to occupy my time these days. I actually went this morning to play. And do you all know about pickleball?
Yeah, it means you got too much passive income, bro.
Yeah, maybe. Still working on it, and I have a good situation with my wife and my family. But
Nice.
It's one of the fastest growing sports in America, and it's basically like tennis for older, slower people.
It's fun tennis without the stress and the.
Yeah, and it's very social.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's been playing for quite a while. He actually started locally this local pickleball club that I'm a part of as well, and it's definitely growing. I mean, the interest and the membership in the club, as well as the sport in general, is something that I didn't know about it until about a year and a half ago, and now I play at least like 3 times a week.
Nice.
Oh, nice. All right.
Yeah. So
Hey, Liem,
we can't be all business and work, right?
Yeah.
Liem, I need to hire a programmer just like you. I got $250,000 a year, but you got to wear surgical gloves 8 hours a day.
Fuck that job.
Come on, it's just, I need the keyboard to stay clean, so I want you to program.
So I think we should remove these gloves and show the camera and say thank you to Jason for. Holy crap, that's a.
Yeah. See, they stick to your skin, right?
That's a. Yeah, and a lot of liquid in there.
Don't ruin your tablecloth.
Yeah.
I'm guessing your hands feel a little clammy.
Oh,
Yeah.
huge, very clammy.
I feel like I've been in the pool for 3 hours.
Yeah, there's a smell that lingers too. I don't know, depending on what gloves you have, but there was a smell that would stay on my hands too.
Oh, this one doesn't smell. So
That's my good hand.
So maybe these blue gloves have maybe they add some powder inside that because when I put it on there, it did feel like there was some type of residue.
When you're stressed out, your sweat smells grosser.
That's another therapy for Botox, hyperhidrosis, over sweating.
Oh, interesting.
I don't think the camera's going to pick up the liquid on my hand.
Yeah, Liem's hand is officially gross.
All right, Jason, do you have a cup or a drink to cheers for the end?
I got my water bottle that's almost empty now.
Let's do that. Jason,
Cheers.
Thank you so much for spending 3 hours and telling us about your life, your career, and all your success.
Good hanging with you.
Cheers. Thank you guys. Thanks for having me. It was fun.
Thank
Cheers.
you.
I'll look you up when I come down to Vegas.
Yeah, please do.
And then we'll hit the tables.